Chapter 663. Evening, 7:20 p.m., Dolphin cruise ship. A solemn and strange atmosphere descended upon the surveillance cabin. Who the hell is that? A staff member looked at the screen and frowned. Is there a cameraman named Kevin in our crew? Impossible. Another person replied. I joined the crew in the first season, and I've never seen anyone like him. Then who is he? Another person asked. You're asking me. Who am I supposed to ask? Similar conversations were heard one after another, but to put it bluntly, it was all nonsense. Okay. In the end, it was the director who was not deaf who shouted. Who can explain to me? Why? Why is there a man carrying a camera on this deserted island that has long been sealed off? When he said these words, his tone could be said to be rhythmic and sonorous. And after he finished speaking, the effect was that the entire place fell silent. About 5 seconds later, the director who was not deaf sighed and broke the silence again. Sigh. You can at least check the surveillance footage outside the cave and the surrounding area to see where he came from, right? He lectured his slow-witted subordinates as if he was teaching a lesson to a child. Quick, what are you waiting for? After a few seconds, the first person who reacted immediately shouted, Immediately check all the footage taken by all the cameras in Zone J in the past 10 minutes. Although the person who shouted wasn't an important person, everyone still did as he said. Of course, their actions were futile. After all, Kevin was a summoned creature. His relatively reasonable entrance was only for Fong Bujue, out of Brother Ju's sight, who knew where he came from at the same time, in the cave. Ha! Ha ha ha! Fong Bujue laughed proudly as he picked up the things he had placed on the ground one by one. Ah! Ha ha! Ah! Ha ha! Every time he picked up an item, he would laugh lewdly. For a while. Cough. Let go. Cough. Me. Arhut still didn't give up struggling. Even though she was choked by the neck and couldn't use her strength, she still spared no effort to attack Kevin with both hands. It was just that her beating and tearing was like scratching an itch through a boot to Kevin, completely harmless. Give up. You're just wasting your energy. Fong Bujue put the marijuana, handcuffs, and handcuff keys back into his trouser pocket one by one. Then he held the military shovel in his left hand and the pistol in his right hand. He stopped smiling and began to speak normally. Even if you beat him until you're exhausted, Kevin won't hurt at all. It's actually quite painful. Kevin suddenly turned to look at his brother Ju and said, It's Long Di Dong. After Fong Bujue heard this, he immediately cried out in surprise. Brother Ju did not expect Kevin's voice to be so shrill and hilarious. It sounded like the squeaking of a rubber duck. Ha! Cough, cough. Ha ha. Even Arhut, who was suppressed on the ground, laughed. It was obvious how frightening Kevin's voice was. However, Kevin himself didn't seem to care. He had a nonchalant expression on his face. Okay, let's get to the point. Fong Bujue quickly regained his calm. Of course, this calmness had a hint of pain in his balls. Kevin, let her go. After the order was given, Kevin did as he was told without any hesitation. Arhut sat up, stroked her neck with her hand, and stared at Brother Ju with a hostile gaze. However, at this moment, her gaze had already lost its confidence, and there was even a hint of fear hidden in it. Don't worry, Miss Arhut. I'm not like you. Fong Bujue waved the gun in his hand and said coldly, I'm very familiar with this thing. I promise I won't hit your vital parts, and I won't kill you. Cut the crap. What do you want? Arhut asked snappily. I'll give you 1 minute to hand over all the things on you. Fong Bujue replied. His line of thought was the opposite of Arhut. The reason why Arhut let Brother Ju take out the thing slowly was because she was afraid that the other party would suddenly explode and resist by force. The reason why Brother Ju let Arhut be faster was because he was not afraid that Arhut would resist. What if I don't give it to you? Arhut coldly snorted. Good question. Fong Bujue replied, and then gave Kevin a look. Kevin, break her knees and search her body. Arhut only had time to say this one syllable. Half a second later, her knees were broken. The thing that broke her knees was none other than the camera that Kevin carried on his right shoulder. He always carried the camera on his shoulder, including when he pressed Arhut to the ground with one hand. He didn't put it down. A dash! Arhut screamed at the top of her lungs. The pain made her expression become distorted, and her body instinctively curled up. However, Kevin didn't care about that. He wouldn't stop until he finished carrying out Brother Jew's order. The next second, he grabbed Arhut's shoulder and turned her over so that her back was facing up. Then, he began to search for her belongings. Arhut had no place to hide anything on her body. The rain-soaked clothes had revealed the outline of her body, so her belongings were undoubtedly in the pocket of her hot pants. A few seconds later, Kevin successfully found the only two things she had: a small plastic bag containing marijuana and a compass. "Look, I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it," Fong Bujua said. "You bastard. Bastard." Arhut cursed loudly. The pain and regret made her shed tears. The clamor of a loser is always memorable. Fong Bujue responded to Arhut's abuse with a happy expression. At the same time, he put the military shovel under his arm and freed one hand to take the items that Kevin handed over. After examining the two items in front of his eyes, the process took about 2 minutes. Brother Jew sneered, "Humph. It seems that you've eliminated someone, right? None of your business." Arhut roared back. At this time, her severe pain had subsided. Although it was still very painful, it was still bearable if she didn't move. "Oh, even if you don't say it, I can figure it out myself." Fong Bujue glanced at the marijuana in his hand and laughed. "First of all, you don't seem to be affected by withdrawal at all, which means that you've used at least one marijuana. But you still have 3 marijuana in this bag." "So what?" Arhut responded rudely. "I successfully found multiple marijuana stashes, can't I?" "That's impossible," Fong Bujue said firmly. "The first stash was a special case. It was deliberately arranged for us to find it. But the rest, I'm afraid it's not that simple." He looked at Arhut and shook his head. "You said it yourself. You didn't compete for the purpose of survival and challenge. How could someone like you go looking for stashes?" Brother Jew said this, weighed the compass in his hand, and opened the lid. "Look at this compass. Hee. The pointer inside is not pointing at the right place at all. You didn't even do your homework properly." He looked up at Arhut. Obviously, this was caused by someone who doesn't know how to use it. "Humph. How do you know that I don't know how to use it?" Arhut was still stubborn. "Do you know how to use it?" Fong Bujue asked with a smile. "Then can I trouble you to explain to me what the directional intersection method is?" F*CKU. This was Arhut's answer. "Ha." Brother Jew laughed a few times and continued. "Okay, back to the topic just now. Why would someone who doesn't know how to use a compass carry a compass with him?" He paused for 2 seconds and answered his own question. "Combined with the amount of marijuana you have, it's not hard to guess. You have already robbed a player. And it happened at the beginning of the game, when the opponent had just found the stash." Brother Jew stuffed the marijuana and the compass into his trouser pocket and picked up the military shovel again. "I think, after you found your stash, you immediately deduced that the other player's starting situation was the same as yours. So, you quickly moved in an arc around the periphery of the island in an attempt to rob someone. In the end, you really found someone who received the compass as a starter item." Brother Jew raised his head and licked his lips. Who could it be? His mind raced, and in 3 seconds, he had filtered through the 10 players with the elimination method. Except for Arhut himself and my role as Stephen Carbon. The first one that can be eliminated is Bubo. He received a weapon as a starter item, and his strategy is similar to Arhut's, so it can't be him. Ao Guanhai and Eastwood Gu were eliminated by me, so they can also be eliminated. So, the remaining people who may have been robbed by Arhut are Block, Bod, Screwdriver, Erda, and Suppuration. Arhut is still very young, and her physical fitness is definitely not bad. The speed at which she found the stash must be better than average, subtracting the time it took for her to travel. Then, the person she robbed must be very slow. That was the only way she would be able to rob the victim of his stash before he had even used it. Is it really Bod? After thinking for a while, Fong Bujua whispered this sentence intentionally or unintentionally. When Arhut heard this, his eyes obviously changed. This detail, of course, couldn't escape Brother Jew's wretched, fierce eyes. Huh, it's really Bod. Feng Bujua laughed. Arhut said in a deep voice, "How do you know?" "Actually, I just guessed." Feng Bujua replied, "But your reaction made me sure it was him." This is a bit ridiculous. Brother Jew's reasoning naturally couldn't be just guessing. He said this mainly because he didn't want to reveal too much information. In fact, Feng Bujua only had 2 targets in the end. One was Bod, and the other was Screwdriver. These two, due to age and figure, it was inevitable that they were slower than other players. And both of them looked like the kind of people who would choose a compass as their starting item. So, they were also the most likely victims to have been robbed by Arhut. "Humph. Okay, there's no harm in telling you," Arhut replied. "That's right. This afternoon, I snatched Baphomet's marijuana and compass, forced him to smash his knee with a stone, and then withdrew from the competition." She tilted her head. "Originally, this was going to happen to you, Mr. Carbon." She glanced at Kevin again. "Until your helper came to mess things up." "I see." Feng Bujua nodded and thought to himself. "In other words, my opponents are currently 5 people." For some reason, at this moment, a faint trace of uneasiness sprouted in Brother Jew's heart. This doesn't feel right. He pursed his lips and frowned. This scenario seems to have a high difficulty double main storyline. Survive on Carnibus Island for 72 hours and complete at least 6 challenges given by the program, but the elimination rate seems to be a bit too fast. Based on this situation, in less than 24 hours, the winner will be decided. With this thought in mind, Feng Bujua was shocked. He suddenly realized the real difficulty of this nightmare scenario. Chapter 664. The Gala Crocodile was a creature that only existed in comics. According to the comic, the level of the Gala Crocodile was Capture Level 5. Capture Level 1 was defined as a wild beast that could only be captured by 10 professional hunters with hunting rifles. That was the rating given by IGO, the fictional organization in the captive of food. Of course, the individual's ability would affect the capture level. A young Gala crocodile and one that had lived for more than 100 years would naturally be several levels lower. The Gala crocodile lived in the Balon Islands, a dangerous area where about 200,000 species lived. It stood at the top of the local ecosystem. It had a body as large as a hippopotamus, a back that was hard like a washboard, 8 short legs, an ugly and scary flat face, and a pair of cute eyes. It had hard scales, strong teeth, sharp claws, and a bite that weighed more than 3 tons. The most troublesome thing was that it had a large number of Balon leeches living in its mouth. The wounds caused by these leeches were hard to heal, and the bleeding would continue for a long time. In conclusion, this was an animal that a normal person would not be able to defeat. However, there was a man who chose to launch a surprise attack on her on a stormy night. It was 7:47 p.m. There were still 15 minutes until the time limit of Kevin's summoning. By then, Feng Bujua had already entered the depths of the swamp on Carnibus Island with Kevin leading the way. This is bad. The water level has risen so much compared to this afternoon. Brother Jew, who was following behind Kevin, used his hand to wipe the water off his face as he mumbled, "This is not good." Even if a level 30 player came, this was Brother Jew's current assessment of Kevin's ability. To fight the Gala crocodile in waist-deep water, it would be difficult. However, even though he knew the severity of the situation, Brother Jew had no choice but to do it. The reason was Kevin's summoning time limit. Perhaps the person who designed Bell's Daily Knife wanted to use it as an excuse to complain about the broadcast time and cycle of a certain program. In any case, the setting of cooldown time, 1 week, active time, 45 minutes basically announced that Kevin could only be summoned once in a scenario. For this kind of summoning interval, unless there was something extreme, like the player obtaining something that could greatly reduce the cooldown of equipment, Kevin would not appear twice in the same scenario. Therefore, Feng Bujua, who had already summoned Kevin, was caught between a rock and a hard place. It would be a huge waste if he didn't use this summoned creature that had combat power that far exceeded that of a normal person. But if he wanted to use it, it seemed that there was only one thing that was most suitable for him to do: hunting alligators. Thus, Brother Jew gave the order to lead the way and followed Kevin into the swamp despite the heavy rain. Anyway, Fong Bujua had already thought it through. When the time came, he would watch from afar and let Kevin fight the alligator alone. It would be best if he could beat it, and he could complete both the side mission and the challenge at the same time. If he couldn't beat it, he would simply give up on the side mission and wait until the rain stopped to kill an ordinary small crocodile. He could also complete the challenge. After walking for another 5 minutes, Kevin suddenly stopped and said, "There's something up ahead." At that moment, there was a flash of lightning in the sky. Suddenly, the swamp was lit up like it was daytime. Using the light, Fong Bujua quickly straightened his neck and looked over Kevin's shoulder. Even though the water droplets on his eyelashes and eyelids made his eyes sore, he still saw the giant shadow about 20 meters away. "This is a F** king dinosaur." Fong Bujua raised his hand to wipe his face. To prevent it from getting wet, he put the pistol inside the plastic bag that he used to store marijuana, so he was holding the military shovel with one hand. He cursed under his breath. Didn't the crew forbid the appearance of dead people? Why would they put such a deadly animal on the island? He asked a good question. Why? Actually, the reason was very simple. Because this kind of animal was not much of a threat to humans. Seeing this, there would definitely be people who would be confused. How is this possible? That was a long story. First, he had to explain the basic setting of this scenario. In fact, Fong Bujua had been to this universe before. This was the universe of the old Earth wasteland. This time, seeking poison in the wild took place in the year 2460, 5 years after the Village of Heavenly Blessing incident on Old Earth. The humans in this universe had already taken the first step toward interstellar colonization at the end of the 22nd century. See Chapter 129. After so many years, they had naturally found many celestial bodies that were similar to Earth. For example, at that moment, Fong Bujua was on a planet called Fourth Earth. Due to the high level of technology and the abundance of resources, war had disappeared from the human world. Therefore, one day in the 24th century, a group of scientists who were bored to death, they might have been military munitions makers in the past, decided to launch a biological rescue project and began to study the genes of various endangered, extinct, and ancient creatures after decades of hard work. This group of people succeeded. The zebra and Florida black wolf that appeared on the island were two extinct animals from old Earth that were resurrected by genetic technology. Creatures like these were not rare in this universe. They could be seen everywhere in the wild. They were like mongrels. Sometimes, to control the population, the local government would even encourage hunting. Then, after the Biological Rescue Project, a strange project called Biological Improvement Project was added to the agenda of the group of people who had nothing better to do. Another few decades passed, and with the birth of another Nobel Prize winner, the project was a success. From then on, in the deserted wilderness, mostly islands, many strange creatures appeared, like the gala crocodile, balloon tiger, sucker snake, giant land shark, and many other strange creatures appeared. According to the scientists, this is a test of the existing ecosystem, so please don't worry. In conclusion, for these humans in the 25th century, as long as they were willing, they could even create King Kong. In the end, it was back to the original question, why were these animals not lethal? That was because all the creatures born through the Biological Improvement Project were implanted with a special gene, and the only function of this gene was to make them lose their advantage when fighting against humans. For example, mosquitoes. If the humans in this universe wanted to eliminate mosquitoes, they could completely tamper with the mosquito's genes and turn them into an animal that would be poisoned to death as soon as it came into contact with human blood. Similarly, the products of the Biological Improvement Project carried similar genes since the day they were born. For them, human pheromones, body odor, blood, skin, and flesh were all things that they feared. When they encountered humans, they would basically run away immediately out of instinct. Even if they wanted to resist, they would quickly be poisoned to death. Remember the conversation between Bell and Not Deaf? Okay. I know. We were the ones who chose the venue together, remember? I saw the list of animals there. And, to be honest, I didn't really care. Coyotes, black wolves. It didn't make much of a difference to me. From our perspective, Not Deaf's attitude at the time might have been a bit cold. But in that universe, most people had this kind of don't know, don't care attitude toward animals. Because animals have become something like clothes, they could be mass-produced and adjusted at will. There was no longer endangered or extinct. There was only an overpopulation. There was a digression here. Thankfully, Fong Bujue had no idea that the technological level of this universe had reached that level. The scenario that he experienced happened to take place in the wilderness. So far, the most high-tech product that he had seen was the floating camera next to Clamwell's. If Brother Ju knew that there were other high-tech products on this planet, such as portable railguns, ants, a kind of nano-robot technology in this universe, anti-gravity fighter armor, and so on, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that time, would he still care about the competition? Of course, he would go directly to the Dolphin, take hostages, and contact the local government to send him some firearms. That would be the right thing to do. Then, after understanding the background setting, he returned to the story. Kevin, you go and kill it. After Fong Bujue saw the giant shadow, he completely gave up on the idea of going forward. A few minutes ago, he did think that if possible, he should go and help Kevin, but now, that thought had disappeared. Okay. A second later, Kevin answered in a very normal tone, and then he strode forward. Fong Bujue stayed where he was, providing moral support. Kevin was indeed a summoned creature from a legendary tier equipment. In a swamp that was more than a meter deep, he carried a video camera. Although it had been broken by bullets, Kevin still insisted on carrying it, and strode forward in large strides. To him, the storm was like a gentle breeze or a lowly spitting out water. His tall body was like an iron tower, and he was not affected by the wind and rain at all. Roar! Suddenly, a low roar that was as loud as thunder came from the front. The roar seemed to have substance. It tore through the thick air and penetrated the deep darkness. This was the king of this swamp, giving a final warning to the enemy that was approaching him. Unfortunately, Kevin would not listen. The order that he received was clear, and there was no possibility of retreat. Chapter 665. As the saying goes, the world is unpredictable. At this time, Fong Bujue deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. Physical discomfort was nothing to him. His lower body was soaked in a muddy swamp for a long time, and his upper body was baptized by the heavy rain. He could tolerate all of this. What he couldn't tolerate was the mental disgust. That was, the development of a matter greatly exceeded his expectations, and the ending made him feel inexplicable. For example, the mist, 1408, bag of bones, and so on. Fine, other than Poe, Brother Ju had quite a big problem with Stephen King as well. The two things that he wanted to say to the latter were respectively, what the F***CK, and what kind of grudge do you have with Maine? Back to the topic at hand, the thing that made Brother Ju feel uncomfortable was Kevin had died. Then, the Galaligator also died, and he didn't know why this happened. A few minutes ago, when Kevin rushed to the front of the Galaligator, Fong Bujue thought it would be a brave man fighting the evil dragon. In the end, there was no such thing. After the powerful roar, the Galaligator actually chose to turn around and run away. This scene was simply incredible in Brother Ju's eyes. In the human world, this was like a third-grade elementary school student A win a fight with a third-grade junior high school student B. When B saw it coming, he picked up a kitchen knife and performed a set of saber techniques in front of the other party. Then, it did not cower, but B ran away. Was this kind of thing possible in the animal world? At that time, Fong Bujue thought, could it be that I underestimated Kevin's strength? In fact, his combat power is far above my imagination. And that Galaligator, with its animal instinct, was keenly aware of this, so it chose to run away. When Brother Ju thought of this, Kevin had already rushed over, jumped on the back of the Galaligator, and used the camera hammer. But in the next second, the galactic crocodile twisted its body and used its body, which weighed a ton, to press Kevin into the swamp. Fong Bujue thought again. Could it be that I underestimated the Galalligator's intelligence? In fact, its intelligence was far above my imagination. It felt that it would inevitably be injured in a head-on battle, so it pretended to run away and showed a flaw. Then, it used this move, lazy donkey rolling, in order to kill it in one blow. But when he thought of this, the Galalligator rolled over to the other side and continued to flee. Kevin quickly stood up from the swamp as if he was unscathed. He picked up the camera that had been crushed into a lump of metal and chased after the Galalligator. What? Brother Jew was stunned. I didn't know Kevin was so powerful. It seems that Gala's move was just a delaying tactic. In fact, it was still afraid of Kevin, so it came up with this method to buy time for itself so that it could escape. Sizzle, sizzle. Kevin waded through the muddy water of the swamp and chased after it, making this kind of shit-stirring movement. After more than 10 seconds, he caught up with the galactic crocodile again and went directly to the front of the other party. Dang, dang, dang. In the rain, there were 3 striking sounds. It was the sound of the iron camera being whipped on the galactic crocodile's outer teeth. The galactic crocodile had 2 fangs that grew out of its mouth on both cheeks. At this point, the galactic crocodile finally couldn't bear it anymore, but its cute eyes flashed. In the next second, it opened its bloody mouth and bit down on Kevin. The scene was as if a car opened the front cover of the car and clamped Kevin. After that, Kevin's upper body disappeared, and his lower body lost consciousness and sank into the swamp. What the F*** CK? Fong Bujue's mood at the moment was like accompanying Lady Chun San to play cordless bungee jumping in the mountain bandit stronghold. Up and down, it was so good that he wanted to die. Why'd you run so fiercely? It was finished in one bite. Instant kill. In the end, Kevin was no match for it at all. However, after another 5 seconds, the galactic crocodile screamed and died. Back to the present time. Main mission progress update. At least 6 challenges given by the program team have been completed. Current progress 1/6. Side mission has been completed. The system prompt proved that the target was already dead. You two are playing with me. Fong Bujue narrowed his eyes and stood on the corpse of the galactic crocodile. There should be some logic in dying together. Who can explain it to me? I'll believe it if you say it's a human-beast love story. Rumble. In this rainstorm, in the wilderness, the only thing that could respond to him was thunder. TSK. It's really annoying. For Brother Jew, the result of the matter just now was not important. What was important was, why did this happen? Unfortunately, with the information he currently had, it was impossible to infer the truth, so he had to continue to endure this feeling of knowing the reason, but not knowing the reason. Sigh. Fine. Fong Bujue sighed and took out the knife from his waist. This monster did not die under my Bell's Daily knife, so the special effect of the knife is useless on it. This is good news. As he spoke, he began to collect the skin and meat of the galactic crocodile. This monster was different from an ordinary crocodile. The skin on its back was as strong as steel, and at the same time, it had reliable toughness. After cutting it into strips and tying it into a bundle, it became an extremely good rope, and its meat was even more delicious. According to the settings in the manga, even if no seasoning was added, just simply roasted on the fire, its taste was incomparable. Therefore, it had the title of the world's highest level of crocodile meat. Fong Bujue's so-called good news referred to this. If the galactic crocodile died under his knife, the delicious taste would no longer exist, and only the taste of chicken would be left. On the other side, in the monitoring cabin of the dolphin. God, is that person dead? Do you still need to ask? He was bitten into 2 pieces. This guy is really crazy. He actually attacked the galactic crocodile repeatedly. This is clearly courting death. What should we do? This is the 3rd time that someone has died since the show started. I don't want to deal with the police again. What bad luck. The first time, it was not easy to determine that it was an accident. In the end, we still had to pay for compensation and change the rules. The second time, it was barely determined to be a case of manslaughter, and the show was forced to stop broadcasting for a season. This time it's simple. As long as we submit the video we took to the judicial authorities, they should be able to determine that an unknown mental patient broke into the filming site and committed suicide in front of the camera. The staff in the cabin were all talking at once. They did sympathize with Kevin, but for such a strange stranger, their sympathy was limited. Most of them were thinking about themselves and how the show would end, since his origin is unknown. Suddenly, the vigorous and powerful voice that was not deaf sounded again. Then we simply pretend that he never came. Isn't that enough? His words were like a cold wind passing through, causing everyone present to tremble. Basically, everyone who heard this sentence instantly understood the meaning of not deaf, but no one dared to respond. No one is speaking, right? Not deaf waited for a while and continued. Then there's no objection. As he spoke, he sat up from his chair and walked to the console. All right, I'll personally delete that video. At the same time, 3 nautical miles east of Carnabas Island, under the sea, a submarine was slowly advancing, approaching the deserted island in the wind and rain. In the submarine's command room, a one-eyed man in a blue trench coat was facing the radar with a ferocious expression. This man looked to be about 45 years old. He had long, sloppy gray hair and 2 strands of gray beard that spread out horizontally under his nose. He wore a black eye patch over his right eye. The eye patch was printed with a pirate symbol, a white skull with 2 crossed white bones. His right wrist did not have a hand. Instead, it was replaced by an iron hook. His left foot did not wear a boot because the part below his calf was a cone-shaped wooden stake. Why is there a ship there? Graybeard looked at the radar and shouted, "Who are those people? Are they from the Maritime Drug Enforcement Administration?" The more he spoke, the louder his voice became. His authentic hoarse voice was the opposite of Kevin's. "Oh no, they must have found the treasure I hid on the island. We have to kill them. Torpedo! Prepare the torpedo!" Although he was shouting and yelling, the crew looked at each other and no one moved. Obviously, this group of brothers had long been used to similar situations. They all knew that the captain's orders were often unreliable. "Pops, I don't think there's a need to rush to use the torpedo." Before Graybeard's voice fell, a somewhat childish voice sounded not far behind him. Not to mention, we haven't confirmed the identity and purpose of the other party. Even if it is really a ship from the Maritime Drug Enforcement Administration, we shouldn't attack rashly, because their people may not all be on the ship. If we act rashly and alert the enemy, then we will fall into a passive situation where the enemy is in the dark and we're in the light. The person who spoke was actually a little boy. He looked to be only 11 or 12 years old. He had a rather white face. "Son, call me Captain." Graybeard heard this, bent down, and whispered to his son. "Sigh." The little boy rolled his eyes and sighed. "Okay. Captain, I have an idea. Why don't we find a place to land on the other side of the island, and then send a team to investigate the situation of a ship? If it is really from the Maritime Drug Enforcement Administration, then we will deal with it." He shrugged, "But, according to my speculation, this is probably just an ordinary cruise ship that is anchored on this island to avoid bad weather. When the wind and waves die down, they will leave on their own." Captain Graybeard touched the beard on his mouth, smiled at his genius son, then raised his head and said loudly, "Did you all hear what the first mate said?" "Yes, Captain." The crew in the command room replied in unison. A minute ago, in the face of the captain's torpedo launch order, they became deaf, but now, when the first mate spoke, the crew seemed to instantly recover their hearing. "Oh!" Graybeard pretended to shake his upper body and raise the iron hook in his right hand. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." Chapter 666. The next day, 3:00 in the morning. The competition had only been going on for 15 hours, and 5 out of the 10 contestants had already been eliminated. They were Warren Buffett, Lindsay Arhut, Baron Solomon Scretchard, Balak Hussein Ogwanhai, and Eastwood Gu. Among them, Arhut, Ogwanhai, and Gu were eliminated by Stephen Carbon, played by Fong Bujue. Buffett was eliminated by Arhut. As for that Baron Solomon Skrekai, he had forfeited on his own accord. After he found the first marijuana hiding spot, he stopped and leisurely smoked the 2 marijuana in the plastic bag. He then announced to a nearby camera that he wanted to withdraw from the game. Objectively speaking, the Baron's move was quite wise. In a situation where the chances of winning were slim, forfeiting was undoubtedly the most sensible thing to do. If he continued to play, the situation would only get worse and worse. Compared to having your knees smashed or playing with all your strength for 72 hours and still failing in the end, quitting early at least saved you some pain. In addition, among the 5 people who survived, there was one who was almost in a half-eliminated state. That was contestant number 10, John Winston Abscess. Like the Baron, Abscess also smoked the first batch of marijuana immediately after he found it. But after he smoked, he neither forfeited nor continued to explore. He just stayed where he was and rested in silence for a few hours. His attitude was very passive, as if he didn't want to do anything. Helplessly, the program crew sent a staff member to ask him if there was anything wrong with his body. Abscess replied that he was meditating for love and peace, and his actions were a protest against the program and the world. So, the staff member left again because the director decided to let him continue to protest. In summary, there were only 4 contestants left on the island that were still competitive, namely Block, Not Erect, Wendy, and Carbon. If the elimination continued at the pace of the first day, perhaps before the sunset of the second day, the survivor of Seeking Poison in the Wild would be born. And this was a situation that Fong Bujue was extremely unwilling to see. Now that he turned back to look at the 2 main missions of this scenario, survive for 72 hours on Carnabis Island, and complete at least 6 challenges given by the production team, there were many hidden messages, or rather, hidden difficulties. First of all, the phrase survive on Carnabis Island for 72 hours was a huge trap in itself. With the combination of the introductory cinematic and the second main mission, it was easy for the players to be led into thinking that the goal of this scenario was to win man seeking poison. However, as the scenario unfolded, Fong Bujue slowly realized that was not the case. If one were to look at the first main quest alone, one would discover that surviving on the island for 72 hours and winning the competition did not have an absolute cause and effect relationship. Secondly, there was also a very obvious restriction in the condition of completing at least 6 challenges given by the program team. You had to wait for the program team to take the initiative to give you the challenge. But what if they don't give it to you? Or perhaps they felt that there was no need to give it to you anymore. At this point, I believe you understand the situation. If the players eliminated all 9 opponents in a very short time and won the competition, then this scenario would be game over. Because from the moment you won the competition, there was no reason for you to stay on the island anymore. If you stubbornly refused to leave this deserted island, there would usually be 2 outcomes. The better outcome would be everyone would just think that you were being arrogant for a moment and return to the ship to wait for you for a day and a half. They would only leave after you had thought things through. The worst outcome, which had a higher probability of happening, was that people would treat him as a lunatic and capture him. They would then forcefully drag him onto the ship and leave the island. Taking one step back, even if you really managed to stay on the island for 72 hours, the production team would not give you any more challenges. Therefore, the real difficulty of this scenario was the 2 main missions would conflict with each other, and the basic setting of the plot would conflict with these 2 missions as well. This kind of conflict was not going in the opposite direction, but a relationship of mutual restraint. For example, if the players wanted to complete the first main mission, they could not win the competition too early. But if they wanted to complete the second main mission, they had to do the challenges. But if they did the challenges, they would expand their advantage and win the competition faster. Also, how to deal with those opponents was a very complicated and contradictory thing. If they were all eliminated, then you would win the competition and lose the scenario. But if you kept them around, then you would be keeping a hidden threat. Any of them could deal you a fatal blow at the most unexpected moment. Brother Jew was almost eliminated by Luo Han earlier. If not for Kevin, he would have died, and their threat would only worsen as time passed. This was because, at the end of the competition, there would only be a few people left on the island, and of these few people, the players would be the ones who had completed the most number of challenges, and the others would not have completed more than 6 challenges. After all, they did not have a fixed target for that. Therefore, if they wanted to win, there was only one way: to eliminate the person who had completed more challenges. Think about it. On the morning of the 4th day, about 10 hours before the end of the competition, anyone who had not been eliminated would have the thought, since I've come this far, I have to win. At this time, they were usually hungry and sleepy, addicted to drugs, eager to win, and out of their minds. At that time, the production team would also mediate. They would fan the flames in front of those who were lagging behind, reveal some information about the leader, and give them a choice. Do you want to accept another challenge from me and try to surpass him? Or do you want to know his current coordinates and then do something about it? Then, the most interesting part of this reality show was about to begin. All kinds of crazy arguments, profanities, and scuffles would appear. This was the guarantee of viewership. This was what the audience of that era wanted to see. One could say that it was sick, depraved, or vulgar, but from their perspective, it was something that was so normal that there was no need to explain. Once upon a time, people looked at everything that appeared on the screen with kindness, and they were moved by some of the performances that were not very clever, but very sincere. Later, people looked at entertainment products with a relatively objective attitude and enjoyed the wonderful creativity and dazzling visual effects. Later, people began to pursue fame and weirdness to show their so-called personality that no one cared about at all, or to satisfy some deep needs in their hearts. Therefore, erotic publicity, retarded idol culture, cheap and vulgar hype, and shameless plagiarism celebrities emerged one after another and gradually became mainstream. And in the 25th century, in an era of peace where no one had to worry about starvation, what kind of things were people eager to see? The answer was simple: conflict, violence, and competition. People had seen enough of the false tears, the false smiles, the false praise, the false astonishment on the stage. They wanted to see the naked, unadorned, real reality show. This was seeking poison in the wild. In the cave, the fire on the ground had been extinguished. The rainstorm outside the cave gradually became lighter and turned into a drizzle. The thunder stopped around midnight, and the wind weakened a lot. Last night, when Brother Jew and Kevin went to hunt the Garuda, the program staff came to the cave in the rain and carried away the injured and incapacitated Arhut. So when Brother Jew came back with the crocodile meat, there was no one in the cave. Because it was rainy, these people left obvious traces. Feng Bujue, who returned, quickly speculated what had just happened. He did not care about this and just lit the fire again. While drying his clothes and socks, he enjoyed a delicious meal that he had never tasted in real life. The night was silent. In the early hours of the morning, Feng Bujue, who had rested for a few hours, had basically recovered all his stamina points. And this also meant that he had to start moving. Chapter 667. Wealth, Fame, and Power. The drug lord King Roger, who once had everything in the world, left behind a sentence before he died that made people all over the world rush to the sea like ducks. Do you want my treasure? If you want it, I'll give it to you. Go and find it. I left everything there. Early in the morning, on the deck of the submarine had already floated up and docked. Captain Greybeard was giving an impassioned speech in front of the crew. Perhaps it was because the content of his speech was a little nonsensical, or perhaps it was because he had already said it many times, but in short, the crew was either yawning or looking into the distance absent-mindedly. No one was seriously listening to the captain's lecture. Enough, Pops. There's no need to start from the day you went to sea when you were 17. A young child's voice interrupted Greybeard's words and said weakly, "Get to the point." The little boy who spoke was Greybeard's son, Max Grey. He was the second in command, first mate, on this pirate ship, submarine. Greybeard heard this and was slightly taken aback. Then, He awkwardly cleared his throat and limped to the little boy's side. He leaned down and whispered, "Son, what's the point?" "The point is that the treasure on the island is yours. Whoever dares to touch it will be killed," Max whispered in his father's ear in a calm tone. "Oh, yes," Graybeard responded and immediately straightened his body. He turned around and said to the crew, "Me, the great Graybeard, Weeder Gray, as one of the four locusts of the drug lord era, the man who inherited Roger's will never allow anyone to touch my treasure." "Ah, what treasure? Isn't it just a few tons of stock?" Before the captain finished his sentence, a crew member standing on the leftmost side of the first row whispered. This person was usually known for his cheap mouth. No matter what he heard or saw, he always liked to mutter a few words. Right now, he was just saying it out of habit, but he never expected, "Who's talking?" Graybeard immediately shouted with his hoarse voice and glared fiercely in the direction of the voice. In the next second, the crew members beside the speaker chose to betray their teammate and pointed at him in unison. The guy was terrified. "Ship, Captain, what's your name?" Graybeard raised his head and looked at him with a condescending and contemptuous gaze. I. A person who was usually very eloquent was now stuttering. "My name is Tom." "Oh, Tom." Graybeard muttered Tom's name as he turned his face away. In the blink of an eye, a second later, Graybeard took out a flintlock from his holster at lightning speed. It looked like a handgun from the early 18th century, but it was made from futuristic technology. Without turning his head, he fired a shot in Tom's direction. Bang! A gunshot rang out. The sound of the gun was very retro, as if it brought people back to the Caribbean during Queen Anne's time. Following that, a thud sound was heard. A corpse fell onto the deck. Phew! Graybeard blew away the white smoke from the muzzle and raised his head 45 degrees to look at the dim sky. "As I always said, under my gun, there are no nameless ghosts." Captain, I'm still alive." Tom's voice was heard again. Graybeard was taken aback when he heard the sound. He immediately turned his head and looked back. Only then did he realize that his incomparably dashing blind shot while turning her head had missed. The bullet hit a crew member next to Tom, and it hit him right in the heart. "By the way, the one you killed is called Jerry." Tom nervously pointed at the dead man on the ground with his finger. Graybeard cleared his throat again and put the gun back into the holster. "See, Tom? Next time, if you talk too much, you'll end up like Jerry." "Understood. Thank you, Captain, for not killing me." Tom lowered his head and answered submissively. At this moment, his real thoughts were, "Fortunately, Captain is an idiot. Today, I'm still alive. Don't misunderstand, I didn't miss. I originally wanted to kill Jerry." A few seconds later, Graybeard continued. "In fact, I already knew that he was a spy sent by the police." "Dad, you don't have to explain anymore. This matter ends here." Max held his forehead with one hand and shook his head. Okay." Graybeard shrugged. "Someone throw this spy into the sea." Then he turned his head again. You, Tom. You bring a few people and immediately go to the island to investigate. I want a definite report before lunch. Otherwise, I'll chop you up and feed you to the fish." "Yes, Roger. Captain," Tom replied loudly with a stiff expression. At the same time, north of Carnabas Island. "Hey, Stephen, we meet again." Clams appeared in front of Fong Bujue again. Perhaps some people would ask, isn't the frequency of clams and Brother Jew running into each other a little too often? Actually, that wasn't the case according to the rules. Every contestant could bring 10 items to the competition. Fong Bujue was an exception, but the system had already fixed this, so the NPCs wouldn't find it strange. Every time they met clams, they could only take one item. In other words, in order for the contestants to take all the items, they had to meet clams 10 times. If these 10 interactions were divided equally, it would be once every 7 hours. Of course, in the actual competition, taking into account factors such as sleeping at night and early elimination, this time would be shortened. During the day, it was normal to meet once every 5 hours. Hello," Fong Bujue replied with a lisp as he stuffed the insect carcass a big lump, into his mouth. "What are you eating, Stephen?" Clams looked at him with interest and asked. "Protein," Fong Bujue replied calmly. You're able to let go of your prejudices and eat these disgusting things as pure energy. That's very impressive," Clams said as he glanced at the camera again. "In the wilderness, if you can do this, you can live longer than others." He paused for a moment. "But just daring to eat is far from enough, Stephen." He gestured at the insect carcass in Brother Jew's hand with his eyes. Some insects and small animals have toxins or parasites in their bodies. If you don't have the relevant knowledge, it's easy to eat poisonous things by mistake. That will put yourself in danger. "Don't worry, these are all safe." "I'm sure of it," Fong Bujue replied expressionlessly. Although he didn't know if the insect in his hand, most of them were insects, and there were some strange unknown creatures, were poisonous or harmful. He was sure they were all killed by Bell's daily knife. So they could be eaten after cutting off their heads, and the protein content was 6 times that of beef. "Okay, I hope you're right." Hearing the other party's answer, Clam Wells did not say anything more. He immediately changed the topic. "Okay, Stephen, I'm sure you've guessed it. I'm here because I have something to give you." "Humph. I've been looking forward to it for a long time." Fong Bujue smiled. "Huh, don't celebrate too early." Clams added, "What I'm giving you is not only a prop, but also a challenge. This is also one of the main rules of this program. Other than the one at the beginning of the game, in the subsequent games, every time the contestant meets Bell, they will receive a challenge. All the challenges are optional, but if you do, you'll get a certain benefit. Other than that, the number of challenges completed by the contestant will also become the criterion for the final survivor." "Yes, I want a challenge," Fong Bujue replied. "Actually, Bell, I'm already thirsty for it." His expression changed slightly. "I have a suggestion." He stuffed the insect in his hand into his mouth and swallowed. "Give me more challenges at once, like 5. How about that?" Chapter 668. When Clam Wills heard Brother Jew's request, his expression changed slightly. 2 seconds later, he raised his eyebrows and laughed. You sound very confident, Stephen." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment and glanced at the floating camera next to him without batting an eyelid. Then he said, "But your request doesn't quite conform to the rules of the competition." "What does that matter?" Fong Bujue interrupted him. "According to the normal process, every time you accept a challenge, you can receive an item, right?" Although Brother Jew didn't know the complete rules of the competition, he could roughly guess this based on the information he knew. "That's right," Clam Wills replied. His answer also confirmed Brother Jew's speculation. Then, Fong Bujue continued, "What's wrong with my request now?" He spread his hands. "I didn't ask you to give me all 5 items at once. I just want the challenges." He tilted his head and said in a rather confusing tone, "Your program team's idea is to let the contestants listen to the content of a challenge first, then choose an item to complete. That's the setting of take 1 and choose 1. He showed a confident expression. "And as long as I receive an item, I can complete 5 challenges. Objectively speaking, this is not an excessive request. Instead, it's a concession, isn't it?" You're good with words, Stephen." Clam Wills didn't think much and replied with a smile. "But you can't fool me." He took off his backpack and placed it on the ground. "First of all, I don't need you to tell me. What is the idea of our program team?" He raised his hand with his palm facing up and made some gestures to match his words. "Second, your request isn't a concession. In fact, it's a very effective way to obtain information. I think you know this in your heart." He shook his head gently. "Third, a request like this that is obviously inconsistent with the rules. Even if I don't have any opinion, I have no right to rustle." At this moment, Clam Wills' walkie-talkie rang. "Bell, can you hear me? I'm not deaf yet. Please reply immediately if you hear me." A voice came from the other end of the line. Clam Wells immediately picked up the walkie-talkie and said, "This is Bell. Please speak. Take a few more steps forward and stand next to Mr. Carbon. Hold the walkie-talkie between the 2 of you," he replied. Clams didn't reply. He just raised his head and glanced at the camera beside him. Then, He followed the director's instructions. About 5 seconds later, Clamwell stood 1 meter in front of Brother Jew and raised the walkie-talkie to shoulder height. His own shoulder, not Fong Buju's. "Mr. Carbon, can you hear me?" At that moment, the person on the other end of the walkie-talkie spoke again. "Yes, it's very clear," Fong Buju replied. While replying, Brother Jew was also trying to figure out the other party's identity and purpose. "I'm the executive director. I'm not deaf. We met before the competition. Do you remember?" "Yes." For the sake of caution, Fong Buju chose to respond ambiguously. He neither admitted nor denied it. After all, the person who wasn't deaf was Stephen Carbon himself, not Fong Buju. Brother Jew didn't know what was going on. "Bell, you can hear me, right?" Since he was not deaf, he did not suspect Brother Jew's answer, so he used the opportunity to ask Bell. "I can hear you," Clamwell replied. "Okay, then I'll get straight to the point." Not deaf said, "First of all, there won't be any records of our conversation right now, so I'll just say it. Mr. Carbon, I want you to lose." "What did you say?" Fong Buju's expression changed, and his tone became serious. "Don't get too agitated. Let me finish." Not deaf continued. "Mr. Carbon, your previous performance was very good. Even if we don't consider the crazy performances you put on to confuse us, your other abilities are the best in history." He changed the topic. "So you have to lose." If other people heard this, they would definitely ask why. But Fong Buju didn't ask because he had already thought of a conclusion. "Oh, the so-called the strongest cannot win principle, right? Huh, so you know this too." Not deaf smiled and continued. "Mr. Carbon, it seems that you are very proficient in the techniques of our industry. If there's a chance in the future, I will definitely work with you." "I've also watched some reality shows. I've already seen through your little tricks," Fong Buju said weakly. "In addition to balancing, there's another set. The strongest one must not win. Whether it's cooking, singing, dancing, makeup, wilderness survival. In short, the winner will definitely not be the strongest one. This way, it makes the show seem suspenseful and interesting. It subconsciously conveys the idea that it's not the strong who wins, but the winner is stronger, as if there's some kind of positive energy in it. But to put it bluntly, it's just a dirty deal stained with the stench of money." Mr. Carbon. After Not Deaf heard Brother Buju's words, his tone changed slightly. "You." Suddenly, he raised his voice. "It's great that you can understand us." "Ha ha." He laughed. "In that case, you should have guessed what I'm going to tell you next, right?" "Of course." Fong Buju also laughed. He looked at the camera and cast a you-know-what-I-mean expression. Then, he said, "Tell me, the content of our deal." 10 minutes later, on the other side of the island, at this time, Graybeard was standing by the guardrail on the submarine deck, facing the sea, brushing his teeth and washing his face. The cup he used to brush his teeth was specially made. The handle of the cup was directly above, so it was convenient for him to hook it up with a hook. His towel was also specially designed. It was very much like a mop that could be wrung dry by rotating the handle. As long as one hand cooperated with the hook, the water could be wrung dry. Captain, Tom, and the others are back. A crew member's report interrupted Graybeard's washing. Graybeard spat out the water in his mouth, turned around, and blew at the foam on his beard. "Fufu, what's going on? Why are you so fast?" Before he finished speaking, he had already limped to the other side of the deck. From afar, Graybeard saw Tom's figure. He immediately shouted, "Bastard, you're back in the blink of an eye? Are you messing with me?" "I wouldn't dare." Tom quickly shook his head and waved his hand. He replied with a panicked expression, "Captain, let me explain. Hurry up and tell me what's going on." Graybeard was stunned when he said this because he realized that behind Tom and the other crew members who went to investigate, there was another person sitting. It was a white man who looked to be about 30 years old. He had brown eyes and brown hair. His long hair was messy, and he was wearing a vintage suit. "Who is this hippie?" Graybeard walked up to Tom and squinted at the stranger sitting on the deck. "Captain, this is a captive I caught in the woods by the beach," Tom replied. "Captive?" Graybeard walked up to Liu with a suspicious expression. He looked at the latter and asked, "Kid, what are you doing? Why are you on this island?" "Huh?" Liu sat on the ground like a puddle of mud and replied with a lazy expression, "I wanted to ask you the same thing. What are you doing? Are you a cameo arranged by the program team? Why did you force me onto this submarine?" As he spoke, he had already sized up gray beard from head to toe. Then he actually laughed. "Ha, brother, who designed this style of yours? Your clothes and appearance are all so old-fashioned. Also, how long has it been since your director last watched a pirate movie? These days, pirate captains are usually played by handsome men who look dispirited but have an elegant temperament. How could they find I'm not targeting you. How could they find such a boorish uncle to play the role?" When he finished speaking, everyone on the deck stopped moving. For a moment, everyone could only hear the sound of the sea breeze. After a full minute, Graybeard came back to his senses and realized that there was nothing wrong with his ears. Therefore, he laughed in anger and asked Liu a question with a kind face. "Young man, what's your name?" Chapter 669. At the same time, in the monitoring room. "Director, there's a situation. You'd better come and take a look." He had just finished discussing the insider deal with Brother Jew. Before he could even put down the walkie-talkie, an assistant director walked to his side and told him in a hurry, "Brother Jew, I'm sorry." "What is it?" Not Deaf tilted his head and lowered his voice. Just now, suppuration was taken away by several unidentified people. The assistant director replied. Not Deaf frowned slightly. "What do you mean, unidentified people?" "It is a few men wearing light blue striped sailor suits, with headscarves, long belts, and machetes at their waists. We do not recognize them at all." The assistant director paused. After thinking for a second, he added, My personal guess, is it possible that someone has landed on the other side of the island? What is it? Did something happen?" At this time, Clamsail's voice came from the walkie-talkie. Not Deaf then realized that the communication was not cut off. He immediately put the walkie-talkie to his mouth and replied, "Don't worry, Belle. I will take care of it. You and Mr. Carbon continue to do your own thing. Everything will go according to plan." Clamsails heard that and hesitated before saying, "Okay, James, since you said so." He sighed. "I believe you can take care of it." "Ha! Well, have I ever disappointed you?" Not Deaf laughed. Indeed, just as he had said before, he had never let them down. Every member of the program group of Seeking Poison in the Wild trusted Not Deaf very much. They did not trust his reputation, but his actual ability. Not Deaf was a very capable person. He was a born leader and commander. If he was born in a time of war, he would definitely have made a name for himself in the military and political world. However, in this peaceful time, he eventually became a director. "Then, that is all for now," Clamsails said. "If there is anything new, I will contact you again." Then he ended the communication. He raised his head to look at Brother Jew and said, "Stephen, let's go back to the scene just now and do it again." As Clamwell spoke, he put away the walkie-talkie, took a few steps back, and returned to his original position. "But the angle of the sunlight has changed," Fong Bujua said. "Our position and posture will also be different from before. If we cut this part together with the previous one, it will be easy to tell." Clamwells laughed. "Just change the camera angle." He pointed at a camera on a nearby tree. When editing, you can insert the footage from that camera. After a few seconds, you can return to the footage taken by this floating camera and cut it to a close-up. This way, after a few scenes, no one would be able to tell that the scene had been edited. Of course, even if that's the case, there's a way to cover it up through post-processing. Of course, there's always a way to cover it up. That's right. I see. Fong Bujue replied thoughtfully and continued. Then there's no problem. How about we start with my sentence, "Give me more challenges at once"? Okay. After Clamwells finished speaking, he thought for a few seconds, glanced at the camera, and then resumed the tone of a host. "Are you sure? Stephen, you have to know, this won't do you any good. If you do this, it's equivalent to voluntarily giving up 4 chances to claim the game items." "It's okay. I've thought it through very clearly." Fong Bujue also turned on his acting mode. He responded pretentiously and put on a very confident look. I don't need so many game items to win the game. Oh, it seems that you have a well-thought-out plan. Clam Wells replied with his eyes wide open. His acting skills were not inferior. He easily showed a complicated expression that was struggling with his thoughts. Okay then. A few seconds later, a look of determination appeared on his face. Since you've requested to increase the difficulty, I have no reason to refuse. He raised his right hand and spread out his 5 fingers. Listen up, Stephen, your 5 challenges are, side mission has been triggered. At this moment, the mission notification sounded. The moment he heard the notification, Fong Bujue instinctively opened the game menu and looked at the mission panel. 1. Hunt a Queensland woolly-nosed wombat. Whether it's dead or alive, as long as the hunt is successful. As soon as Clamwells finished speaking, a new mission was refreshed in the menu. Catch a Queensland woolly-nosed wombat alive with your bare hands. 2. Find and eat a type of tuber, whether it's raw or cooked, but I personally recommend that you roast it over a fire. The whole taro raw. 3. Hunt a bird of any species. Similarly, whether it's dead or alive. If you're willing, you can let it go after you catch it. Use a long-range attack, without any traps, to kill an avian animal. 4. Draw a map for any area on the island with an area of no less than 5 square kilometers. You only need a sketch, but it has to be understandable, at least for me to understand, and the difference between the map and the actual area cannot be too big. At this point, Clamwells took out a small notebook from his backpack. The paper is here. You could draw on one piece of paper or draw on several pieces of paper. You could tear them down and put them together. As for the pen, you'll have to figure out yourself. Draw a precise military map for any area on the island with an area of no less than 5 square kilometers. 5. Find and dig out ores that weigh more than 500 grams. Any ores will do, as long as they have mining value, but not normal rocks or pebbles. Find and dig out ores that weigh more than 500 grams. What the? Fong Bujua mumbled to himself. So, every challenge will trigger a corresponding side mission. He was not wrong. That was how the nightmare was set up. From an objective point of view, this setting did not increase the difficulty of clearing the scenario. This was because the players could choose not to do the side missions. As long as the players ignored the side missions and completed the content given by Clamwells, the challenge would be considered a success, and it would not affect the progress of the main mission. However, in reality, this setting increased the overall difficulty of the scenario by another 30%. This was because the person who was playing the game was Fong Bujua. He was the kind of player who would say, "This is so troublesome," while tirelessly completing all the hidden elements and side missions in the game. Based on his performance in the previous scenarios, the system understood that already. Therefore, this setting was created to target Brother Jew. Those are the 5 challenges that I have given you. After reading the content, Clamwells said, "Have you memorized them? Do you need me to repeat them?" "No need," Fong Bujue replied without hesitation. "Okay." Clamwells squatted down and pulled open the zipper of the backpack. "Then, before I leave, choose an item that you wish to claim." Chapter 670. See, this is what I always say. Make the best use of everything. Looking at the blood splattering on the surface of the sea, Greybeard smiled with satisfaction. At this moment, he was standing on the deck of the submarine, enjoying a shark show. And the main character of this show, other than a few sharks that were attracted by the smell of blood, it was naturally suppuration. This rock star never dreamed that the cause of his death would be to be shot by a pirate with a musket and then thrown into the sea to feed the fish. I hate hippies. After suppuration's body was gone and the sharks had dispersed, Greybeard shook the hook in his right hand and said, "I'd rather use a dozen hippies in exchange for a dog that can scrub the deck. But I remember you said you hate dogs." A crew member standing by the side continued. Greybeard tilted his head slightly and glared at the man. "Kid, what's your name?" My name is Butch, Captain." Butch's expression suddenly became serious. "Please don't kill me, Captain." "Pooh." Greybeard tilted his head and spat. Do I look like the kind of person who kills people randomly? Before he finished his sentence, he heard, "Ah!" A scream suddenly came from not far away. Graybeard and Butch looked over and saw a crew member who was using a sponge mop to scrub the deck was spat in the eye and fell flat on his back. Did you see that? Butch. Graybeard was stunned for 2 seconds before he adjusted his expression and turned to Butch. Letting the dog scrub the deck is definitely a good idea. Yes, yes. Captain is wise. Butch nodded repeatedly. Oomph. Graybeard snorted and continued. Okay, Butch, go and call the first mate over. I have something to discuss with him. Aye, aye, sir. Butch responded loudly and then turned and ran away. After the other party walked away, Graybeard shook his head, shrugged, and muttered, Which bastard was in charge of recruiting sailors when we docked last time? He raised his left hand and counted on his fingers. Tom, Jerry, Butch. The above 3 names are all characters in Tom and Jerry. What's next? Tyke. I'm a drug lord, not a seller of children's products. While he was talking to himself, the first mate, Max Gray, arrived on the deck. Dad, is there something you need me for? Max quickly walked to Graybeard's side and asked in his tender voice. Yes, son, Graybeard replied. Tom and the others have finished their investigation and returned. What, so soon? Asked Max, who had not been on deck when Tom and the others had returned. Graybeard continued. After they crossed the beach and walked into the forest, they immediately found a person and many surveillance cameras. He paused, so they captured the person and turned back. Oh, Max nodded and then asked, Where is he? I threw him into the sea to feed the fish, Graybeard replied. Max's expression changed slightly. Then, did you get anything out of him? Yes. Graybeard stroked his beard. His name is John Winston Rupture. Max tilted his head. This person has the same name as the lead singer of the Headbutt Warriors? Headbutt Warriors? Graybeard was stunned for 2 seconds. Oh, you mean that group of hippies? Then, he subconsciously turned his head to look at the sea. Speaking of which, the Rupture that I threw into the sea to feed the fish was also a hippie. Hearing this, an ominous feeling rose in Max's heart. Dad, what did that person look like? Can you describe him? About 30 years old, white, light brown eyes, brown hair, hairstyle, and clothing. I can't remember. Anyway, he was a hippie, Graybeard replied. Max laughed dryly. No way. His eyes flashed, and his brain was spinning. After 10 seconds, he suddenly widened his eyes and said, Dad, you just said Tom and the others found a lot of cameras on the island? Yes. Graybeard was puzzled. What's wrong? Max did not answer, or rather, he did not have time to answer. In the next second, Max turned around and ran back into the submarine. Only his father was left standing alone on the deck, staring blankly into space. About 5 minutes later, Max returned with a tablet in his hand. See for yourself. He turned the computer screen and raised it in front of his father. Graybeard took the computer with one hand. After looking at it for a few seconds, he lowered his head and asked, So that hippie, is that famous? He curled his lips in annoyance. If I had known, I would have kept him alive and extorted some ransom or something. Don't worry, Dad. There are many famous people on this island who can make you a hostage. Max turned his face and looked at Carnabas Island. I already know what's going on this island. On the other hand, on Fong Bujue's side, after receiving buy-in from Clamwell's, he embarked on his journey of challenge. And the first thing he did was to shoot birds. Obviously, using a long-range attack, without any traps, to kill an avian animal was the easiest of the 5 side missions. He only needed to raise his hand and shoot, and the mission would be completed. However, in the actual operation, Fong Bujue quickly discovered a problem. Brother Ju raised his head and looked at a branch that he had shot off. He muttered, Because it's not my body. Even the shooting specialization is useless. That's right, this was the problem he was facing. Although Brother Ju's shooting specialization was average, he was still a C grade. He could still hit things within 7 to 8 meters with a slingshot. But now, he was using Stephen Carbon's body. Naturally, The various abilities of this body could not be specialized. So, whether or not he could hit the target depended on Feng Bujue's own operation. To put it simply, he was now using a slingshot to shoot things in the real world. If he wanted to hit, he had to aim at the right angle, calculate the strength, and aim accurately. He even had to consider the target's reaction and the direction of the wind. This is not good. Birds are generally small in size, and most of them stay in high places. Feng Bujue looked for the next target and muttered, "If I get too close, the target may fly away, but if it's too far, it's extremely difficult to hit." Dodo, dodo. Suddenly, two strange cries entered Brother Ju's ears and interrupted his thoughts. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was luck, maybe it was fate, or maybe it was the protagonist's halo. In short, at the moment when Feng Bujue was in trouble, a miracle appeared. Accompanied by the two cries, a strange big bird walked out of the forest. Yes, the bird walked out because it couldn't fly at all. Feng Bujue took a closer look and quickly recognized the animal. He couldn't help but blurt out, "The dodo is one of the most famous extinct animals besides the dinosaurs." The dodo was large, slow, and couldn't fly. They lived on the island of Mauritius for millions of years, living in peace. But in less than 100 years after being discovered by humans, they were completely extinct due to human hunting and other human activities. The one in front of Brother Ju was indeed a dodo. Its feathers were blue-gray, and the belly color was lighter. Its beak was like a vulture, slightly black. Its wings were short and small, and it couldn't fly. Its legs were thick and yellow, like two extended versions of chicken feet. And its most striking feature was a cluster of curled feathers on its buttocks. Combined with its simple and slow image, it could be described as cute. "Dodo, dodo." The dodo seemed to have heard Brother Ju's words and raised its head to call at him twice. "This?" Feng Bujue hesitated. The dodo in this universe hasn't gone extinct yet. Brother Ju was not an animal protectionist, but occasionally he would casually, inexplicably, and spasmodically show kindness. This should be the case when he adopted Arthas. Not to mention, he knew a thing or two about animals as famous as the dodo. So at this time, his mood was similar to seeing a panda. Even if he knew what he should do kill, he would still think twice before acting. So it can't be helped. It's your fault for being a bird. After nearly 10 seconds, Brother Ju's mental struggle ended. He immediately leaned over, grabbed a small piece of soil, and put it in the leather bag of the slingshot. After putting the ammunition, Brother Ju stood up again, then spread his legs, raised his left arm to the side, and pulled the bow with his right arm, tilting the slingshot to a 45-degree angle. His oblique straight arm swing was a slingshot style that was easy to master and had stable accuracy. Of course, the correct posture was only the basics. It didn't mean that if you knew the standard posture, you would be able to hit the target 100% of the time. Phew, such a big target, about 7 meters away. This is not a missed opportunity. Feng Bujue straightened the rubber band and aimed properly. This way, the challenge is over. When he said the word over, his right hand released and the pellet shot out. The moment the small piece of soil flew out of the leather bag, it suddenly changed into a round ball of light that emitted a yellow glow in the air. 2 seconds later, there was a bang sound. The ball of light hit the ground. "Dodo!" The dodo turned its head to look at the hole 1 meter away and called out in a high pitch. Then, it shook its fat body and ran back into the forest. TCH, it missed. Feng Bujue's expression didn't show much disappointment. He just calmly put away the slingshot and said, "Forget it. This is fate. Let's do another challenge first." After that, he whistled and continued on his way. Chapter 671. 7 o'clock in the morning, in the captain's room of the Dolphin cruise ship. "Captain." Before Def entered the cabin, he walked to the captain's side and cut to the chase. "There's a situation on the island. I hope you could take a look at it." The captain of a dolphin was called Joseph Campbell. He was an experienced captain in his 60s. Seeing that before Def came to visit, Joseph's expression did not change much. He only responded calmly, "What's wrong?" Someone is finally seriously injured. Do we need to mobilize the helicopter? He tried to guess. That's not it, before Def replied. Please take a look at this. As he spoke, he picked up the tablet that he carried with him and pulled up a video. This is the footage that we took an hour ago. The video that before Def played was the part where the pirates took Puss Splitter away. The video was not very long. It only took a few minutes because Puss Splitter did not put up much resistance before he was taken away by the pirates. After Captain Joseph finished watching, he was silent for a moment. What do you mean by showing me this? Of course, I'm asking for your opinion. Before Def said, who do you think those people are? I don't know. Joseph could not be bothered to answer the question, but I know what to do next. He paused for a moment and turned to look into the pair of eyes that were not Def yet. You and your boys have to stop filming immediately and withdraw from the island. And I will call the Coast Guard now. Wait. Before Def saw that the other party had already reached for the walkie-talkie, he quickly reached out and grabbed Joseph's elbow and dissuaded him. Is this necessary? He said in a low voice. Joseph, you have to think this through. The production cost of our show is very high, and we're already halfway through filming. Do you know what it means to reshoot? That has nothing to do with me. Joseph's tone was firm. You paid me to ensure that this ship of people can come and go safely. I've been paid, so naturally I have to do my job well. He shook off the hand that wasn't Def yet. Don't tell me about the production cost or the filming progress. I only know that at this moment, there's a group of unidentified militants not far from us, and they have already captured a passenger on our ship. He raised his hand and pointed to the console beside him. The worst thing is, I didn't see anything on the radar. This means that those people either appeared out of thin air, or they came here on some kind of anti-reconnaissance vehicle. He took half a step forward and lowered his voice. It's impossible for a civilian ship to carry that kind of equipment, and they don't look like regular soldiers at all. So, they're either pirates, drug lords, or both. When he said this, he mimicked the tone of the person who had spoken earlier and asked, do you know what it means to be targeted by these people? After listening to the captain's words, the expression on his face changed several times. Of course, he still did not show any signs of panic. After a few seconds, the person who was not Def seemed to have made up his mind and replied, Okay, Joseph, I think you're right. Notify the Coast Guard. As he spoke, he turned around and walked out of the cabin. I'm responsible for contacting and recalling the staff on the island and selecting, boom. His words were interrupted by a loud noise. Along with the noise, the entire ship shook violently. What's going on? Captain Joseph's shout rang out immediately. The old captain almost fell to the ground under the impact. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and grabbed the edge of the console to fall to one knee. Captain, the hull has been hit. The second engine is damaged, and the rear cabin is flooded. A crew member who was originally sitting at the console climbed back to his seat and looked at the screen and responded loudly. Seal the rear cabin. Call for backup, quick. The captain roared. What's going on? Joseph? The person at the door was not Def. He was standing at the door when the impact happened. He held onto the door frame and did not fall. What's going on? God knows. Joseph pressed the captain's hat on his head with one hand and stood up with the other. Maybe it was hit by a large marine creature. Maybe squeak woo. At this time, a dull, loud sound of metal rubbing suddenly came from the stern of the ship, covering the captain's voice. Damn it! The person who was not Def cursed, then rushed out of the door and ran along the deck toward the source of the sound. During this process, the sound of metal rubbing did not stop for a moment, and with this sound, the hull began to gradually tilt and the stern side of the ship became higher and higher. However, the physical fitness of the person who was not Def was surprisingly good. Even though he was going uphill, he quickly reached the stern of the ship and witnessed with his own eyes. Oh, God! The scene in front of him shocked the person who was not Def. At this moment, the stern of the cruise ship had a huge gap. In the gap, lumps of green, semi-solidified material were constantly pouring out. The material expanded violently after it came into contact with the seawater, then quickly solidified into solid metal. Magically, This metal did not show any signs of sinking in the seawater. It floated strongly on the surface of the sea and pushed the stern of the dolphin upward, causing the entire ship to tilt. Metal condensation torpedo. The person who was not deaf immediately calmed down and recognized the true face of this material. The next second, he grabbed the railing, stretched his neck, and began to look around the sea attentively. About 10 seconds later, what he was looking for appeared. A submarine with a skull logo on the hull slowly emerged from the sea and broke through the waves from the side of the dolphin. In the blink of an eye, it was within 200 meters. Damn it, it's a pirate. When the person who was not deaf saw the shadow of the submarine, he knew that the situation was not right. He immediately turned around and rushed to the captain's room again. Joseph, there are pirates. They're already here. The person who was not deaf almost shouted into the captain's room. James! Looking at the person who was not deaf stumbling into the cabin, Captain Joseph announced the bad news. Our communication signal is blocked. What? The person who was not deaf was shocked. The pirate ship must have a blocking interference device for remote signals. We can't contact the Coast Guard. Joseph took off his hat. We may not even be able to send out a distress signal. Abandon the ship, Joseph. Escape to the island first. The person who was not deaf stepped forward. It's useless, look, Joseph said as he reached out and pressed a few buttons on the console to bring up the image of the bow camera. Look, they have already foreseen our possible reaction. When the torpedo sounded just now, more than a dozen pirates hiding underwater rushed ashore and occupied the beach. In broad daylight, it's impossible for us to bypass the armed criminals. Gulp. Now that things had come to this, even the one with a willpower as strong as iron who was able to handle everything with ease fell heavily onto the chair, revealing a look of despair. Ha! Captain Joseph sighed deeply. Maybe this is fate. He shook his head slightly. I wanted to retire after this mission, but I didn't expect. Ha! He raised the deaf flag without hesitation, and then said to the man who was not deaf, You don't have to worry too much, James. You are all important people. They won't simply kill you. Pirates, they just want ransom. When the time comes, the government will definitely come to rescue. Hey, suddenly, the person who was not deaf had something flash in his mind. He suddenly shouted and interrupted Joseph's words. Joseph, you said that the remote signal is blocked. What about the short and medium-range signal? He quickly continued. For example, here, and the communication on the island? Joseph frowned, thought for a moment, and replied, Well, this should still be possible. Before he finished, the person who was not deaf jumped up from the chair, grabbed the walkie-talkie on the console, and turned to a crew member a few meters away. Switch to the regional frequency. Quick! Hearing that, the crew member was at a loss, but Captain Joseph quickly gave him a look of certainty. Do as he says. Therefore, 5 seconds later, the voice of the person who was not deaf rang out in all the communication devices in the region. To all those who have heard this content, attention, this is an emergency. I am James Francis, not deaf, and I am talking to you on the Dolphin cruise ship. Right now, our cruise ship is under attack by a group of pirates. Repeat, pirates are attacking us. Everyone who heard me, if you are still on the island, please hide and try to seek help from the outside world. I will do my best to destroy the surveillance equipment on the ship to prevent you from being tracked by the pirates. The person who was not deaf used a fast, loud and clear voice to repeat the message twice, and then handed the walkie-talkie to Captain Joseph. Continue the broadcast, Joseph. Do not stop until someone rushes in. Understood. Joseph took the walkie-talkie, immediately put it to his mouth, and began to repeat the words of the person who was not deaf. As for the person who was not deaf, he quickly rushed out of the captain's room and ran to the surveillance cabin. On the other side, in the pirate submarine, there seems to be a pretty smart guy on the other ship. Max listened to the broadcast and sneered. As a director, this person is pretty good. He is calm in the face of danger, and his command is reasonable. Son, at this time, Graybeard spoke. There is something you don't know. For some reason, his tone and expression were particularly cold. This not deaf is much better than you think. Chapter 672. In the morning, 7:20, inside the surveillance cabin of the Dolphin. Look, who is this? Graybeard limped into the cabin and walked straight to the one who was not deaf. At this time, the cabin was a mess. With the efforts of many assistant directors and staff, all the surveillance screens in the cabin were smashed before the pirates invaded. Long time no see. Not Deaf sat calmly on a chair and looked at Graybeard. Bad luck. Ha! Same to you, James. Graybeard laughed. After the two looked at each other, they both laughed, but although they were laughing, there was no laughter in their eyes. Ha! Ha! Ha ha! Not Deaf laughed louder and louder. Graybeard was not to be outdone. His broken voice laughed louder than him. For a time, the crew, staff, and pirates in the cabin, 5 minutes ago, the pirates had occupied the whole ship and gathered everyone in the largest cabin, as well as Captain Joseph, A.O. Guanhai, Gu Arhut, Screw Chayurda, Botchet, all showed a confused expression. Ha! Suddenly, Graybeard's laughter stopped abruptly. At the same second, he roared and punched Not Deaf's cheek. Not Deaf was now a prisoner. Naturally, there was no room for him to fight back. He could only take the hit. Bah! Still Deaf, who had been punched, did not show any fear on his face. He calmly spat a mouthful of blood on the ground and raised his head. The way you greet an old friend is really warm. Oomph. You know this is a greeting. Graybeard grinned. The real main dish hasn't been served yet. It doesn't matter. Anyway, you punch like a girl. Not Deaf responded with provocation. You. Graybeard's eyes widened and he raised his fist again. But 2 seconds later, he put down his fist again and sneered. Huh, you want to provoke me? I won't be fooled. He waved the hook in his right hand. You think this way you can fool me? He turned around and scanned the cabin. Do you know what this man is doing right now? He paused for a moment. Haha, he's luring me into violence. He wants to use this method to make you think that I'm a violent maniac, a madman, so that my credibility will be lowered. Aren't you one? Not Deaf interrupted coldly. Huh, I'm still a far cry from you, Graybeard replied. As he spoke, Graybeard took 2 steps back, opened his arms, and raised his voice. Everyone, allow me to make a grand introduction. This is the man who once roamed the seas with disdain. James Francis Not Deaf, also known as Caribbean Mad Shark. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding pirates' expressions changed. As industry insiders, they had all heard of this name, while the passengers of the Dolphin all had inexplicable expressions. In terms of experience, he is undoubtedly my senior. Graybeard's narration continued. When I was 17 years old and went to sea, he was already a young talent who had been famous for a long time. Is it appropriate to use the term young talent to describe a pirate? The others did not speak, but Not Deaf himself spoke up. Don't interrupt. You bastard! Graybeard yelled furiously and stomped his foot with his artificial leg, which was not deaf yet. The latter's foot was immediately fractured. He could not help but cry out in pain and roll to the ground. Actually, his real name isn't Not Deaf. It's Cameron. Graybeard ignored Not Deaf's screams and continued, until one day he successfully escaped from the hands of Roger Ear Cutter. From then on, he was known as Captain Not Deaf. He sneered. Anyone in our line of work knows that there isn't a single person that Roger, the drug lord king, wants to kill that person. Every single person that died at Roger's hands had their ears cut off. For so many years, only one person was an exception, and he is not deaf in front of you. As soon as he finished speaking, the passengers of the Dolphin all cast looks of not deaf, but not deaf. He is more ferocious than a pirate, more vicious than a drug lord. His nickname, Caribbean Mad Shark, is a portrayal of his eating people without spitting out the bones. Graybeard continued. Graybeard continued. But who would have thought that such a person, after many years, would successfully clear his criminal record, erasing more than 30 years of his life, and suddenly become a director? Phew! I didn't expect you to still be alive. At this moment, Not Deaf struggled to get up from the ground and sat down again. When I saw you on the deck just now, I thought I saw a ghost, huh? How could I die? Graybeard smiled hypocritically. I've kept my life for today, for the day when I can take revenge on you." He began to pace around the man who was not deaf. "I still remember the fight 10 years ago. You boarded my ship, killed all my crew members, chopped off my left leg, chopped off my right hand, threw my wife into the sea." He paused, and the expression on his face became incomparably ferocious. "You even King shot my parrot." At this time, Gray Beard went behind Max, who was not deaf yet. He glared at his enemy and said, "Oh, God, I miss my parrot so much, compared to that nagging woman." He paused and said to Max, who was a few meters away, "Sorry, son." "I understand," Max replied quickly. He didn't want to interrupt his father any further. "In short, I miss Sloan, the parrot's name, my crew members, and my hands and feet." Graybeard walked back to Not Deaf. "It's you who took everything away, and today, I want you to pay it back double." Although he was sweating profusely due to the pain, he wasn't deaf, but he still didn't let go of his arrogance. He met the other's tyrannical gaze and said in a low voice, "Humph. I'm also a little curious. How did you survive back then?" "Huh. Ha ha." Graybeard laughed wildly. "This is God's will." He walked toward Max with a proud face. "You would never have dreamed. My son is a child prodigy." He pressed his hand on Max's shoulder. 10 years ago, when you were slaughtering the ship, the 2-year-old Max managed to escape by hiding in the cupboard in the kitchen." He pointed at his face with the hook. "After you left, Max immediately called for help and dragged a medicine box that was heavier than his weight to help me stop the bleeding." His face was full of pride. "Not deaf. Letting me lie on the deck and wait for death is the biggest mistake you've made in your life. So that's how it is." Not Deaf lowered his eyes and said, "However, this can't be said to be a miscalculation or a mistake on my part." His gaze moved to Max, a 2-year-old child who can do that in the whole of mankind. "How many can there be, Humph?" Graybeard ignored Max's words and continued, "Not Deaf. Do you think, by changing your appearance, you can get rid of the past and live a life of the so-called upper class?" He suddenly roared, "Do you think you don't have to pay the price for what you've done in the past? If you want to kill me, just kill me. Why are you being so long-winded?" Not Deaf replied, "People like you. If you want to destroy me, you can only use violence." He turned his head and glanced at the others in the cabin. "Out of this cabin, no one will believe what you say. Even if everyone on this ship testifies for you, even if I hold a press conference and say I used to be a murderous pirate, no one will believe it." He sneered. "I can totally foresee, after I die, I will be described as a victim or even a hero by the media. People will play the works I directed on a large scale to commemorate me. They will praise my achievements when I was alive. Maybe they will even give me a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Ha! And you, what are you? Degenerate? What you have is a boat full of crude, stupid drug dealers just like you. You can only be drug dealers and pirates for the rest of your lives, because that's the only thing you're fit for. When you're alive, you're feared. When you're dead, you're despised and forgotten. This is the fate of people like you." He turned his head to look at Max. "Kid, if you're really a prodigy, you should know that I'm right. I advise you to leave your stupid father as soon as possible, find a normal family, and study more. Maybe in the future you can." Poof! Graybeard punched him in the abdomen, which was not deaf yet, and interrupted him. "You bastard, you're still so arrogant even when you're about to die." Graybeard said, "Just you wait. When I clean up the island, I'll use your equipment to broadcast your execution live to the world." Not Deaf gasped for breath. He looked up and snorted. "Humph. Just you wait. I want to see who's going to clean up who 8 o'clock in the morning in the central area of Carnabas Island." At this time, Fong Bujue, who knew nothing about what was happening on the Dolphin, was squatting by a stream to rinse his mouth. In the past hour, he had already completed 2 side missions. They were capture a Queensland hairy-nosed wombat with bare hands and eat a whole taro raw. Therefore, the corresponding challenges of capture a Queensland hairy-nosed wombat and find and eat a type of tuber were also completed. He had to admit that these side missions were quite difficult. The Queensland hairy-nosed wombat was an extinct herbivore that was originally distributed in Queensland, Australia. Due to habitat destruction and human hunting, the Queensland woolly-nosed wombat became extinct around 1900. Although it was a herbivore, it weighed about 50 pounds, had a strong body, and sharp claws. All of these brought a certain degree of difficulty in hunting. With the physical fitness of a normal person, under the two conditions of barehanded and live capture, Brother Jew had to expend a tremendous amount of effort before he managed to capture one. When the system prompt for the completion of the mission sounded, his energy was just exhausted. Fortunately, this challenge was life or death, so Brother Jew let the little wombat go. As for the eat a whole taro raw task, it was convenient because the place where Brother Jew caught the wombat happened to be next to a few taro plants. The Queensland hairy-nosed wombat would dig up plant roots to eat and liked to forage near the entrance of the cave. Therefore, after completing the capture task, he took out a military shovel to dig up a taro plant and started the eat a whole taro raw task. Due to the toxicity of the raw taro, and the taro juice easily caused skin allergies, this task was also quite difficult. Even if these factors were not taken into account, and the size and weight of the taro were taken into account, a complete taro would include several large leaves, a long and narrow leaf stalk, a rough and hard bulbous skin, and a rather substantial bulbous stem itself. Any of these things were hard to swallow when eaten raw. To eat all these miscellaneous things was really bloating and disgusting. It was also a kind of torture to the mouth. Of course, Brother Jew survived. However, he still needed to rinse his mouth, wash his hands, and rinse off the taro juice. It would be dry and itchy on the skin before he could continue on his journey. Kala kala kala. Bah! After Brother Jew rinsed his mouth, he immediately let out a long sigh. Phew! Very good. 3 more challenges, and the second main mission can be considered finished. He rubbed his hands in the water. Before sunset today, I should be able to finish the remaining 3. Humph! After that, it's just a matter of survival. Easy. At this time, Fong Bujiwe would never have thought that, in the hour he was doing the task, many pirates had landed on Carnabas Island and started to search for the fish that escaped the net on the island. Moreover, at this moment, 2 pirates came to the forest behind him. Rustle, rustle. Finally, when the 2 pirates were about 10 meters away, Brother Jew heard the sound of their movements. Brother Jew, who was always vigilant, naturally noticed the strange movement behind him. This sound, it's a human. Fong Bujiwe's first reaction was, one of the opponents wanted to sneak an attack on him. Although I have a gun, I can't guarantee that others don't. At this moment, Brother Jew's thoughts flashed. Since Arhut can use a gun as a prop, there's no doubt that others can too. I can't be careless. Thinking of this, he made a prompt decision and ran. The terrain by the stream was relatively open. The enemy was in the dark while he was in the open. Obviously, it was disadvantageous, so the first thing Brother Jew did was to rush into the forest directly in front of him. Who knew? It would be fine if he didn't run, but once he did, the enemy opened fire. Tut, 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 tut. The bullets followed Brother Jew's footsteps and burst open on the ground, splashing mud and stone fragments. At the moment when the gunshots were heard, Fong Bujiwe had already instinctively complained. F*CK. That's an AK. Judging from the sound, it's a dual wielder. It must be Lei Fong. It must be Lei Fong. Chapter 673. After a series of gunshots, Fong Bujiwe scrambled into the bushes. He was lucky. In those 5 seconds, a total of 30 bullets were fired at him, but none of them hit him. After a few seconds of running, Fong Bujiwe was out of breath. After all, he was using the body of a 40-year-old man, so his explosive power was far inferior to a young man's. Phew, something's not right. He took a moment to catch his breath and muttered, "Shooting at me with 2 submachine guns, they obviously don't want to leave me alive. Who else would do such an obvious act of murder?" Thinking of this, he quickly turned around and hid behind a tree to look around. Soon, the answer appeared in front of him. He saw Two men in striped sailor suits and crop pants with bandanas on their heads, each holding an AK-47. They walked out of the bushes across the creek. F***CK. Who are these people? Fonbujue did not remember seeing these two players in the opening cinematic. Based on their attire, they did not look like workers from a show. Even if they were workers, there was no reason for them to use an AK to attack the players, right? They're pirates. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice came from behind Fonbujue. Brother Jew was shocked when he heard the voice. He quickly turned around and saw, "Don't be afraid, they're on our side." Layden, who was wearing a traditional Arabian white robe, looked at Brother Jew with a serious face. He lowered his voice and said, "I'll tell you the details later. Let's kill these two guys first, okay." Fonbujue only thought for a second before he decided to do as Layden said. In this second, Brother Jew's eyes swept across the AK-47 on Layden's shoulder and the machete on his waist. The blade of the machete seemed to be stained with blood. Therefore, he thought to himself, if Uncle Deng was hostile to me, I would have been injured or dead. The fact that he was able to appear behind me without me noticing at all, yet he didn't attack me, this means that he is indeed one of us. As for the two men with headscarves, they were undoubtedly the enemies. Military shovel, knife, slingshot. Layden glanced at Brother Jew and then asked, "Do you have any other weapons? Like guns?" "Yes," Fonbujue said as he took out the pistol from his pocket. "I have 6 bullets." At a time like this, he was not going to play any tricks. He was going to say whatever was on his mind. "How good are you at shooting?" He whispered again, in a lower voice than before, for the two men beyond the thicket were drawing nearer and nearer. "Within 3 meters, I have a 90% chance of hitting the torso. Within 5 meters, I have a 70% chance. But beyond that, it's hard to say." Fonbujue gave a more cautious and honest answer. He knew that at this moment, it was best to be honest. Bragging or trying to be brave could lead to serious consequences. Then save your bullets. Unexpectedly, Layden gave such a response. "I can deal with them alone." "Huh?" Fonbujue was stunned. While he was stunned, Layden had already raised his AK-47, lowered his body, and moved horizontally. "Who's there?" The two pirates outside were chasing after Brother Jew, so they were more focused. Therefore, when they saw the moving shadow, they immediately shouted and raised their guns. Of course, they were fast, but Layden was faster. And he was more accurate. Pa 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 pa. The AK-47 in Layden's hand only rang 4 times, and the heads of the two pirates in the distance exploded like watermelons. After their heads exploded, the corpses of the two pirates twitched and fired a few more times. However, the shots were not accurate, and the bullets flew into the sky. In the blink of an eye, Layden had completed a beautiful double kill. Fonbujue, who was hiding in the bushes, was dumbfounded. This kind of shooting ability was definitely at the level of a player above level 40, or even higher, because Layden's physical fitness, dynamic vision, reaction speed should not be as good as a level 40 player. Phew, 2 more down. After killing the two pirates, Layden let out a sigh of relief and muttered. Another. Fonbujue, who had followed him out of the bushes, couldn't help but repeat this key word. Layden turned to look at him. "Huh, you. Where do you think I got this AK-47? Now that you mention it, I understand." Fonbujue's mouth twitched. "The original owner of this AK-47 has already died under the blade of the knife at your waist." "That's right." As he spoke, he walked to the corpses of the two pirates and began to search. Fonbujue had always been unwilling to fall behind when it came to searching corpses, so he quickly walked over and searched the other pirate's body. As he fumbled around, he asked, "So, can you tell me the specific situation now? For example, who are they? Why do they want to kill me?" "They don't want to kill you," Layden replied. "They want to clean up the entire island." He paused. "Oh, right. They are pirates and drug lords. The captain's name is Graybeard. The first mate is Max Gray, who is Graybeard's son. Their ship, or submarine, is called Parrot. The captain named it in memory of his dead pet, Parrot. Hey, hey, hey. Wait a minute. Feng Bujue couldn't help but interrupt. How do you know so much? Layden, who was busy searching the corpses, replied without looking up. Did you see the blood on my knife? Brother Bujue responded. Layden continued. Generally speaking, in a one-on-one situation, I don't need to use a knife to kill people. Even if I did, the knife wouldn't be stained with so much blood. Oh. Feng Bujue understood immediately. No wonder the distribution of the bloodstains is a bit strange. It was left behind during an interrogation. Or was I just now? Oh, right. Lei Feng pulled the topic back on track. That's a group of pirates. The total number of people is about 60. There are 26 people who came to the island to search and capture the pirates. They're in groups of 2. Not every group has 2 AKs. Most of them are armed with pistols, and some of them are also equipped with knives. When he said this, he had finished searching the corpses in front of him. About an hour ago, the cruise ship was occupied by pirates. Fortunately, the director and his crew destroyed the surveillance on the ship, so we have the opportunity to play a game of cat and mouse with these pirates. He pulled the bolt, stood up handsomely, and put the AK back on his back. In short, wild-seeking poison is over, buddy. He looked straight into Brother Bujue's eyes and revealed a strange smile. Now, let's play something serious. Chapter 674. Current quest has been changed. Main quest updated. Following Lei Feng's provocative speech, a system notification sounded. Feng Bujue opened the game menu, and as expected, the quest tab had changed. The quest Survive on Carnabas Island for 72 hours had disappeared, and in its place was Kill Captain Greybeard. The main quest Complete at least 6 challenges given by the producers was still there, and the progress was 36. In other words, Feng Bujue still had to complete his remaining 3 challenges. Thankfully, I asked for all 6 challenges beforehand, or else things would have been so bad. Feng Bujue looked at the quest tab and could not help but sigh in relief. Earlier, he had made a deal with Not Def. Not Def agreed to let Brother Ju accept all 6 challenges at once and promised that in the following competitions, he would not set up any artificial obstacles for him and would use the method of guiding the other contestants away from Brother Ju. In return, Feng Bujue promised that when he completed the challenges, he would not purposely eliminate the other contestants, and at the end of the competition, he would purposely be injured by the other contestants to eliminate him. Based on the situation at the time, the deal between the two was definitely a win-win situation. Thankfully, he was not deaf. He had saved the viewability and broadcast time of the show, and Feng Bujue felt like he would be able to complete the main storyline slowly and steadily. If everything had gone according to plan, the final result would have been, when there were only 20 minutes left in the competition, Feng Bujue, who had completed all 6 challenges, would coincidentally run into an opponent who was only second to him, and he would be ambushed by the other party. Then, Brother Ju only needed to show off his acting skills and pretend that he had been hit by the other party. After that, he would be able to lie down peacefully and announce his retirement. When the workers moved Stephen Carbon onto the stretcher, the time for the competition was almost over, and by then, Feng Bujue would probably have left the scenario. However, the appearance of the pirates completely messed up this plan. The difficulty that Feng Bujue had lowered by borrowing the power of others had bounced back, and it had become even more difficult than before. No wonder he was thankful that he had accepted the challenge. Just think about it. If Brother Ju did not ask for all the details of the challenge beforehand, where would he have gone to accept the challenge? Even if he could find clam hams and come up with the corresponding request, he would only be treated like a madman. Stephen, Lei Feng spoke again, interrupting Brother Ju's thought. Do you know how to use an assault rifle? He asked that because Brother Ju had already picked up the AK from the pirate and carried it on his back. I think I need to familiarize myself with this. Feng Bujue picked up the gun to take a look. Lay hams. Lei Feng cautiously circled to Brother Ju's side and took large steps forward. He reached out to press down on the man's muzzle. Before you learn how to use a gun, the most important thing you have to remember is do not point the muzzle at others, especially your own people. Understood. Feng Bujua nodded and pretended to be honest. In reality, Brother Ju knew how to use an AK-47. From a first to the third model, he had come across some modified versions before. However, for now, he felt like it was better to play dumb. If he acted like an experienced veteran who knew all kinds of weapons, it would arouse Lei Feng's suspicion. If Lei Feng questioned him because of that, he would not be able to explain himself. By the way, you said earlier that the pirates who come to the island to search are all in pairs. Feng Bujua then asked, "Then, have you already dealt with 2 of them earlier?" "No, I dealt with 1 person earlier," Lei Feng replied. He replied, "The pirate I met happened to be alone." He paused for a moment and continued. I asked him where his companions went. He said, the person in his group said that he went to the bushes to relieve himself. After that, he never came back. He didn't know where that person went. He thought I killed him. Oh. When Feng Bujua heard that, several speculations flashed through his mind. Could it be, he glanced around, that one of the staff on the island went to ambush the pirate who was relieving himself? I think so too, Lei Feng replied. According to the information I received, there are a total of 18 staff members on the island, and they're divided into groups of 3. In addition to Clamwell's, who is acting alone, these 19 people have communication devices. They immediately receive the news that the pirates have occupied the Dolphin. Among this group of people, any one or several of them could have gone to ambush the pirates. He paused. Other than that, there are 4 contestants left on the island. They're you, me, Justin Bubo, and Bill Block. The 4 of us don't have any communication devices, and the people from the program couldn't get in touch with us in time. Therefore, we are in a very passive situation. Other than you and me, Bubo and Block are probably still in the dark, or they have been killed by the pirates. The intelligence of the NPCs in this scenario, sure, is something I don't have to worry about. Feng Bujua could not help but think to himself as he listened to Lei Feng's logical analysis. Then he picked up the walkie-talkie from the dead body and asked Lei Feng, "Do the pirates on your side have walkie-talkies?" "No," Lei Feng replied. Speaking of which, the lone pirate that I killed earlier did not have one on him either. Before he could finish a sentence, he muttered, looks like they're in pairs and share a walkie-talkie. Based on that, Feng Bujua continued, the pirate who disappeared after he went to relieve himself had a walkie-talkie on him. He smiled and then did something that shocked everyone, or at least shocked Lei Jun. "Hello? Can you hear me?" Feng Bujua raised the walkie-talkie in his hand to his lips and switched it to the public channel. He said loudly, "I am Feng Bujua Carbon, and I am still alive. No matter who it was that killed one of the pirates and took his walkie-talkie, I just want you to know that you are not fighting alone. Have you lost your mind? The pirates on the ship will hear you." Lei Feng immediately lowered his voice to warn Shinge. Feng Bujua smiled at him and whispered back, "Ha! I want them to hear me." Then he raised his voice and said into the walkie-talkie, "Captain Graybeard, are you listening? If you're listening, give me a reply." About 10 seconds later, Graybeard's hoarse voice really did appear in the channel. "Who the hell are you? What happened to my people? Don't worry, your people are fine. You will see them soon." Feng Bujua paused for half a second before adding, "On the road to hell." Chapter 675. After the malicious taunt, Feng Bujua stopped talking and let Graybeard go crazy. In the next minute, Graybeard's cursing voice continued to echo in the public channel, until someone, Max, forcibly turned off his walkie-talkie and the voice stopped. "Is it really okay for you to provoke him like this?" Lei Feng looked at Brother Bujua and asked, "Even if I don't provoke him, he won't let me go, right?" Feng Bujua pointed to the 2 bodies on the ground. "Just now, these 2 shot at me without saying a word. This means that they were ordered before they came to the island to leave no one alive. In this case, why should I be polite to them?" "Well, that's true," Lei Feng nodded. "But even so, you don't have to talk to them. Why expose your identity in the public channel and deliberately provoke Graybeard? There are 2 purposes." Feng Bujua put the walkie-talkie on his waist, raised his hand, and extended a finger. First, I want to test Graybeard's character. He paused. If he doesn't respond after hearing my words, or if he scoffs at my ridicule, then he is a calm and shrewd opponent. He laughed. Huh, but from the looks of it, he's acting like a pure bandit. He's impulsive, ruthless, and unable to restrain his anger when provoked. This should be a good thing. Lei Feng continued. Not necessarily, Feng Bujue replied. A cruel person may not be brainless, and a calm person may not be wise. He said and extended a second finger. So, I also made a second test. Oh, what is it? Lei Feng was puzzled. At the same time, on the Dolphin cruise ship. At this time, under Max's command, the pirates had completed full control of the cruise ship. Except for the special care that was not deaf, everyone else had been locked up by the pirates. Captain Joseph and his crew, as well as all the staff of the program, including cameramen, medical personnel, logistics, etc., were all locked in the surveillance cabin. The 5 important hostages, Baport Rohan, Erda, Ao Guanhai, and Gu, were transferred to the lounge next to the surveillance room. Although 4 of them had injured their knees, after a night of treatment, they had recovered some of their mobility and could now walk with a limp. After all, this world was set in the 25th century. Aside from the cutting-edge technology of ants, the ant technology in the wasteland was usually only available in the military, scientific research institutions, and some high-level hospitals. This cruise ship naturally did not have it. In addition, because of the high cost of this technology, ordinary people couldn't afford it. Criminals like Graybeard did not have the right to use it at all. Even if he had the money, there was no place to treat him. The conventional medical methods of humans were quite advanced, at least in the field of surgery. As long as the treatment was timely, it was very easy and fast to cure. What the F***? Who is that? How dare that bastard talk to me like that? In the captain's room, Graybeard was still shouting angrily. Ha ha ha! In the corner of the captain's room, Not Deaf, who was tied to a chair, laughed gloatingly. He is the terror that flies in the dark. He is the winged roundworm that tortures you in your nightmares. This guy's ability to fan the flames was not weak. He is the psoriasis on your index finger. He is the operator who cut off your phone. Are you done? Bastard! Graybeard turned around and scolded. He is the chewing gum stuck to the soles of your shoes. He is the one who woke you up at 3 in the morning and dialed the wrong number. He is the special news that interrupted your favorite TV series. He is the slug lying on your crabapple flower. He is the weirdo next to you on the bus. He is Not Deaf used his actions to show that he was not done. Enough. This time, it was Max who had stopped talking. He was not deaf yet. Stop reciting the lines from Darkwing Duck. I could tell when you said the first line. As a person with a rich imagination, high IQ, and a certain degree of misophobia, Max felt uncomfortable when he heard these lines. Oh, so you pirates also watch cartoons? Not Deaf laughed. My spare time is more than you think. Not Deaf, Max replied. Life on a ship is like this. In addition to daily affairs and some action planning work, most of the time, I am very free. He paused. When I was 9 years old, I had finished all the courses from grade 1 to 12 through the internet and began to study professional courses in university. Due to limited resources on board, I gave up some subjects related to experiments and chose economics, law, and management. Considering the principle of striking a balance between work and rest, in order to let the brain relax, I would multitask and play some entertainment videos while I was studying. So, I randomly watched a lot of cartoons and accidentally memorized all the content in them. After he said this, he paused for 2 seconds and added, "Oh, by the way, the reason I only watch cartoons is because of the age limit. Nowadays, there are too many violent and sexual elements in movies and TV series. It is not suitable for children like me to watch." Not Deaf listened to this full of sarcasm and did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought to himself, "Kid, you hang out with a group of pirates who kill without blinking every day. The things you see and hear are far more bloody and realistic than those in movies and TV series, right? Besides, Is your mental age really a child? I would believe you if you said you were a time traveler. Okay, let's stop chatting. Graybeard stepped on his wooden leg and turned to Not Deaf. Tell me, who is Stephen Carbon? He is a writer, Not Deaf replied. Ha! If you were literate, you might have read his books. Even though he was a prisoner, he still spared no effort in mocking his opponent. Asterisk thump. Asterisk. Ah, she wasn't deaf yet, but what she got in return was another round of physical torture. His comminuted foot had never been healed, and whenever he irritated Graybeard, the latter retaliated by giving him a light nudge with his wooden leg. A writer, Max said thoughtfully, this is a little unexpected. His behavior does not seem like something a cultured person would do. As he spoke, he had already walked to the control panel in the captain's cabin. He stood on his tiptoes and quickly operated it. A few seconds later, the recording of Fong Bujue's previous 2 sentences rang again and was played on the big screen in the captain's cabin. Max turned up the volume of the recording and listened to it 5 times. Then he smiled. Ah, I see. Son, what did you find? Although Graybeard did not hear any clues from the recording, he knew that when his son showed such an expression, it meant that he had found something. No matter what kind of mentality this Mr. Carbon had when he spoke in the public channel, in short, he has accidentally exposed 2 pieces of information. Max said, first, there is at least one person beside him. He paused for a second and turned to look at his father. Second, his position is near a flowing water source. The second test I did was to deliberately let him hear the sound of a small stream in the background. On the other side, Fong Bujue and Layden had already climbed up a nearby high ground and were hiding. At the place where they were hiding, they were able to observe the corpses of the 2 pirates from before. We will wait here for an hour. If no one comes to find us, or if someone comes after 40 minutes, then it means that Graybeard's group is just a group of bandits. But if there are pirates who come to find us in less than half an hour, and it is obvious that they are following the stream with a purpose, then we will have to be on high alert. Fong Bujue stared at the dead bodies as he explained to Lei Fong, because there's a clever person among that group of pirates, and the game with this person will be the key to whether we will survive or not. Chapter 676. Max naturally didn't let Brother Ju wait for an hour. Under his command, the 6 pirates arrived at the stream where the incident happened within 20 minutes. The 6 of them were very organized. After they found the body, they first cautiously searched the nearby forest, then sent 2 people to check it out, while the other 4 continued to hide in the dark to observe. After 5 minutes, there were no abnormalities, so the remaining 4 people appeared together and came to the light. And all of this fell into the eyes of Brother Ju and Layden. See, that's why I chose to hide at a higher point farther away. Fong Bujue stared at the shadows of the pirates in the distance and said, if we would ambush them there, I'm afraid they would have found us by now. Yeah. And if we shoot as soon as we see someone appear, we'll expose our position. Even if the ambush is successful, we'll be surrounded by the remaining 4 people. Layden frowned. Hee, isn't it interesting? Fong Bujue, on the other hand, had an excited expression on his face. There is nothing special about this group of pirates, but among them, there is a very clever person who is acting as their advisor. He slightly glanced sideways and signaled to Layden with his eyes. From the frequency of the pirates using the walkie-talkie, it can be seen that the advisor is directing the actions of the 6 people in real time, and he's meticulous to every step. Unknowingly, Fong Bujue's nature was revealed again. Being able to play games with smart people always made him feel endlessly happy. This isn't a good thing. Why do you look so excited? Seeing Brother Ju's expression, even Layden couldn't help but complain. Just as they were talking, suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind them. Hey, Stephen Osama. Brother Ju and Layden were shocked when they heard the voice. Because their hiding place was very well hidden, the 2 of them didn't expect that someone could quietly sneak up behind them. Kacha kacha! In the next second, the 2 AK muzzles turned around like lightning. Don't worry, it's me. Faced with the muzzle of the gun, Clam Wells remained calm and said in a calm tone, put down your guns. Be careful not to misfire. Phew, so it's you, Belle. Heaving a sigh of relief, he took the opportunity to move the muzzle away and continued. No wonder you could secretly approach me without me noticing. I say, how did you find us? Fong Bujua immediately asked a question that he couldn't figure out. With the current situation on the island, you shouldn't be able to discover us. He was right. The addition of the pirates had complicated the situation. They would leave many footprints and other traces along the way. In addition, the monitoring terminal on the ship had been damaged. Even Clamwells would find it difficult to track a specific target in such a chaotic situation. Haha, your analysis is correct. Clamwell smiled. Indeed, with the current situation, it's very difficult to accurately track. So, I didn't find you by following the traces, but by using this. As he spoke, he picked up a device in his hand and waved it in front of Brother Ju's eyes. Although this thing was an electronic device that only existed in the 25th century, its basic functions were clear at a glance. So Fong Bujua quickly recognized it. GPS tracking location. As soon as he said this sentence, a series of inferences flashed through his mind, and his gaze instinctively swept to the scabbard at his waist. Oh, the sword you gave me, so it can be used like this? In just a second, Brother Ju speculated where the tracking device was hidden. That's right. At this point, Clamwells had nothing to hide. This is James' idea. I hope you can understand, because your previous behavior was it made him feel a bit out of control, right? Fong Bujua was naturally not angry. He could completely understand why Clamwells was not deaf. In fact, he quite admired Clamwell's way of doing things. Haha, it's okay. If it were me, I would do the same. And he tilted his head and glanced at the device in Clamwell's hand. If it weren't for this thing, we wouldn't have been able to meet up so smoothly. Objectively speaking, it has indeed come in handy. Well, it's good that you understand. Clamwells responded, and then he looked at Layden. Anyway, the two of you come with me first. I have an important discovery. I'll tell you the details on the way. After that, he lowered his body, turned around, and walked forward. Brother Ju and Layden exchanged a few glances, and then they followed without saying a word. Both of them were very capable people, and generally, they would not blindly follow others. But in the current situation, they were very happy to accept Clamwells as the leader. The reason was simple. Do you want to defeat a group of fully armed pirates in the wilderness? Please follow Bear Grylls. 9:20 in the morning, Dolphin cruise ship, captain's room. Something's not right. Max paced back and forth in front of the console. His fair face was frowning, and he was muttering to himself. No matter how I think about it, something's not right. Gray Beard, who was standing next to him, also had a nervous look. The more he looked, the more anxious he became. Son, what's wrong? What's wrong? There are many things that are not right. Max replied. For example, from the beginning of the sweep until now, we haven't even taken down a single crew member, and 4 of our people have died. He turned around. Also, when Stephen Carbon left the gunfight site, he even cleaned up his and his companion's footprints. This cautious way of handling things is obviously the opposite of his previous provocative behavior. Maybe there's a very cautious person among his companions? Gray Beard asked tentatively. That's possible, but Max said again, how do you explain their ridiculously strong combat ability? He walked to stand before his father. Both Tyke and Retnine were shot in the head by an AK. From the angle of entry of the bullet and the state of the bodies, the 6 pirates who went to search for Brother Ju had video communication devices with them, so Max was able to see the crime scene directly. Both of them were killed by the same gun from the same direction. He paused for a moment. I don't think a writer can do such a marksmanship. He's a writer, so it's good enough that he can use a pistol. I don't think he's even touched an assault rifle before, let alone marksmanship. What's so incomprehensible about this? Not Deaf, who was sitting next to him, interrupted with a smile. This shows that, among his companions, there's a very skilled marksmanship person and a very cautious person. Haha, this is just the beginning. There are more surprises waiting for you. He shook his head slightly and looked at Gray Beard proudly. I've said it before. We'll see who's going to clean up who. You bastard. Gray Beard was too lazy to go over and stomp him, because from his face that was not deaf yet, it was likely that his feet had already lost feeling due to the pain. You are really arrogant. He glared at him with his only eye. At this point, I have to express my admiration for you. Even after so many years, you still act like a genuine pirate. Haha, you're too humble, bad luck. I remember when I chopped off your hands and feet, you didn't show any signs of weakness. I still remember every curse and curse that came out of your mouth. Not Deaf raised his pale face, which was covered with cold sweat and a bitter smile. Chop it off. I can still crush you with my left hand. You can take this leg home and use it as Thanksgiving dinner, you bastard. He was not lying. He really repeated Graybeard's curses for back then. Ha! Bad luck. Real villains like you and me will not give in until we die. This is also the only dignity left for people like us. Huh? Don't joke around, James. Graybeard sneered. You don't have the right to say this to me in this tone. He leaned over and glared at Not Deaf. Remember, you've already abandoned this dignity. He shouted angrily. The Caribbean Mad Shark is history. Now you're just a despicable, lowly, cowardly escapee. He waved the hook at the front of his right arm and said fiercely, You don't have the right to choose how you die, and you don't have the right to receive any respect. No matter what the outside world thinks, in the world of pirates, you'll always be spurned. Pops, I don't want to disturb you from catching up, but Max interrupted. I think we have more practical problems to solve now. He came to Not Deaf's side. Mr. Not Deaf, we're all smart people. I'll be frank. I hope you can provide me with the list of people on the island immediately. Humph. You think I'll answer if you ask? Ha ha ha. Not Deaf sneered. This is not a primary school class, child. Forgive me for not going to a full-time school. I don't understand your joke, Mr. Not Deaf, Max said coldly. Max's voice suddenly turned cold. But I believe that you will eventually tell me what I want to know. Just like the CIA's training course, every body talk. He bowed slightly and stared into Max's eyes. Of course, I can basically guess that you are already mentally prepared for the interrogation and torture. But I don't think the crew and staff can accept the fate of being thrown into the sea to feed the sharks, he said slowly. Listen, Mr. Not Deaf. From now on, every 5 minutes, someone will be dragged out from the surveillance cabin and beaten to death until you give me the list. Chapter 677. Morning, 9:40 a.m. Somewhere in the center of Carnabas Island, 5 vigorous silhouettes passed through the forest and came to the edge of a steep mountain. The 5 of them were Stephen Carbon, played by Phone Bujua, Justin Bubo, Bill Block, Layden, and Bell Clams. Let's not talk about what happened in the past hour. Let's talk about what happened now. Right now, it was time for them to climb higher. The muddy ground had been dried up by the scorching sun before noon. It was as if the rainstorm last night had never happened. The 5 of them were drenched in sweat as they traveled through the forest at high speed. Even Clams, who was physically strong, was drenched in sweat. Okay, we're here. It's right in front. They reached the bottom of the mountain and walked for another 10 meters. Clams, who was leading the way, raised his arm and turned around to say, You guys go ahead first. Before we take care of that door, I'll be in charge of the perimeter. Layden, who was walking at the back, raised his AK and volunteered to be the lookout. Don't worry, it won't take long, Block said as he walked to the front with a typewriter-like device. I hope this works, Bubo said as he wiped his sweat and looked at the stone wall in front of him. Of course it works. Block looked back at Bubo and said, Who do you think I am? Okay. I know. You're one of the best software engineers in the world with an IQ of more than 160. You don't have to repeat that to me, Bubo replied weakly. If you know, then stop saying stupid things like I hope this works. As Block spoke, he squatted in front of the stone wall and pressed his palm on it. Buzz, the sound of an electronic device, was immediately heard. The next second, the stone wall became translucent, revealing the metal door behind it. Optical camouflage. Fong Bujua, who was watching from the side, finally spoke. He looked at Clams and said, "No wonder you guys didn't notice this place when you set up the cameras on the island. Yeah, the terrain here is dangerous, and it's extremely difficult to hide. Even if someone accidentally came here, they might not be able to discover the existence of the door under the optical camouflage. If it wasn't for the pirate I caught alive who told us this secret before he died, I'm afraid we wouldn't have found this place. Even if we find the entrance, or even if Mr. Block successfully opens the door, we still can't let our guard down." Bubo interjected. "If what the two pirates said is true, and there's really a raw poppy stone hidden here, it's a strange mineral unique to the fourth earth that can be processed into a variety of drugs after refining. The value of a brick-sized raw poppy stone is equivalent to 100 caddies of high-purity hallucinogens. Then there must be a very tight defense behind that door." Huh. Block, who was squatting in front of the metal door, laughed and said without turning his head, "You're talking nonsense again. As long as I decode it successfully, the system connected to the door will treat it as a normal activation process and will not trigger any defense system." "All right, good luck, Mr. Genius." Bubo shrugged. "Oh, right." After a few seconds, Fong Bujua seemed to have thought of something. He immediately took out the notebook that Clam Wells had given him from his pocket. "I happen to have some free time now. Take a look at this." Clam Wells looked over with a puzzled expression, only to see, this is a map. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Submission completed." Following Toad Wells' words, the system notification also rang in Brother Jew's ears. "Yes," Fong Bujua said, "before you met me and Uncle Deng, we ambushed you at that high point for 20 minutes. Because I was a little bored during that time, I took the time to draw this map." He pointed at the pattern on the notebook with his finger. "Actually, I've done some research on military maps before. I can understand it, but I'm not very good at drawing it. Fortunately, Uncle Deng is very good at this. With his guidance, I drew it very quickly." Stephen, let's not talk about why you drew it using military standards." Clam Wells continued. "Don't you think it's strange to continue with the challenge now?" He laughed dryly. "The recording of the program has already been suspended." "Oh, is that so?" Fong Bujue replied calmly. "Sorry, I have a bit of OCD. I like to finish what I started. Maybe it's a habit left behind from writing." He casually found an excuse to dodge the question. In fact, Brother Jew had already achieved his goal. Among the 3 challenges he had yet to complete, only the map drawing required Clam Wells to review. The other 2 only required the system's approval. Done. Not long after, the most skilled geek, Mr. Cap, finished deciphering the map. He stood up with the instrument in his hand and waved his hand to indicate that everyone could go now. A few seconds later, the translucent stone wall quickly disappeared. With another buzzing sound, the metal door that was several meters wide opened. A tunnel appeared in front of everyone's eyes. At the same time, in the captain's room of the Dolphin cruise ship. "Is that all?" Max held the tablet and looked at Not Deaf. 18 staff members, 4 contestants, and the referee, Clam Wells. A total of 23 people? "Anyway, that's all I know," Not Deaf said coldly. "You should know that if you lie about the numbers or fabricate information, I'll find out sooner or later," Max said. "So, Mr. Deaf, I'll give you one more chance." He paused for a moment. "Really? Is that all you've got? Do you have anything else to add?" Not Deaf looked directly into the child's eyes. He hesitated for a moment and said, "There's one more thing. I also feel that it's a bit strange. Of course, this may not be useful information." "Go ahead and say it," Max quickly said. "Stephen Carbon on the island." Not Deaf said, "Doesn't seem to be normal." "Oh, in what way is it abnormal?" Max asked. "I can't explain it. Anyway, it's just not normal." Not Deaf's answer was ambiguous. It was as good as not saying anything. Before you guys appeared, he had done many unexpected things. He glanced at Gray Beard beside him. Compared to that, provoking you through the walkie-talkie is nothing. That's all you wanted to say? Max's eyes looked a little disappointed. "Humph, I thought it was something important. Actually, his drug addiction is acting up or he has lost his mind. Not Def replied, I thought so too at first, but when I carefully analyzed his various actions, I realized. Creak, creak, rustle, rustle. Just as they were talking, the main screen of the console suddenly turned into a snowflake and made a strange noise that sounded like signal interference. What's going on? Graybeard looked at the screen, then turned his head to look at a pirate sitting in front of the console. There were also a few technical personnel in charge of communication, observation, and other matters among the pirates. Kid, are you downloading a short movie? Causing the system to be poisoned? The pirate really wanted to answer his captain. Do you think I'm you? But in the end, he did not dare to say that. He just replied innocently, how could it be? Hi, everyone. Suddenly, the snowflakes on the main screen disappeared, and on the screen, a big face of Stephen Carbon, Phone Bujuik, appeared. Ha 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 ha. The moment he saw the face, Not Def laughed, as if it was an extremely interesting thing. Oh, your gray beard. Your style is quite retro. After Phone Bujuik greeted, he did not wait for anyone to respond and said, that kid is Max, right? The younger generation will surpass us in time. You can see us? Max asked suspiciously. At the same time, his eyes quickly swept over the console. Don't look for it, kid. The main screen in the captain's room is an integrated double-sided coreless optical screen, expensive product of future technology. Only the captain's room is equipped with one. The whole screen can be used as a camera. If you want to cover it, you have to get a bed sheet. Phone Bujuik said. You can remotely activate the camera on my side. Max remained calm and asked in a deep voice. Ha! Phone Bujuik said, I didn't activate it. As he spoke, he took 2 steps back and revealed the scenery behind him. At this moment, Graybeard, Max, and the other pirates in the captain's room all had a sudden change in expression, because they found that, at this moment, the location of Stephen Carbon was inside the original opium mine. Do you see the gentleman with glasses behind me? He is the one who activated the camera on your side. Phone Bujuik said with a smile. Block was busy working on a computer in the cave. He didn't have the time to bother with them. He didn't even turn his head as he replied loudly, sorry, hacking your system is as easy as snatching candy from a baby. Thank you, Bill. A very apt analogy. Phone Bujuik glanced at Block and said with a smile. Then he looked at the camera again and said with a playful expression, so, I think you've already guessed how we entered this original opium mine. Hey, bastard. You're the one who just scolded me on the walkie-talkie, right? At this time, Graybeard suddenly took half a step forward and pointed at the screen. Get out of my treasure now. Phone Bujuik lowered his head and sneered. First of all, I didn't scold you. I just previewed your death in advance. The person who swears like a shrew on the street is yourself. When Graybeard heard this, he wanted to scold again, but he didn't know how to open his mouth. If he scolded, he would be a shrew swearing on the street, but he couldn't refute it. Secondly, this is not your treasure. Phone Bujuik spread out his hands. This is nature's treasure. You just found this place and then build a base similar to a drug factory. Nonsense. In the world of pirates, treasure is whoever finds it first gets it. Graybeard shouted. Huh. Phone Bujuik laughed. I thought you only blinded your eyes when you dug your eyes out. I didn't expect you to hurt your brain too. What do you mean? Graybeard said. What I mean is, you're the one who is talking nonsense. Phone Bujuik shouted back. In the world of pirates, no matter what it is never whoever finds it first gets it, but whoever gets it first gets it. Damn it, what he said is so reasonable. Graybeard said fiercely in his heart. His face was green and purple, and he was so angry that his beard was about to explode. Okay, let's not waste any more time. Max, who was silent for a moment, spoke again. You didn't establish communication with us just to humiliate my father, right? His eyes were cold. Tell me your purpose. Oh, you were thinking silently for a while. Now you have sorted out your thoughts, right? Phone Bujuik looked at Max and said, okay, let Uncle tell you what we want to do. Chapter 678. An hour ago, on the west side of Carnabas Island. At this time, Clams was leading Phone Bujuik and Lei Fong to a hiding place set up by the program team for the staff. At this time, they were not deaf and had not disclosed the information to Max, so these hiding places were still safe for the time being. Let me think. That is to say, there are still 18 staff members on the island, divided into 6 groups, hiding in 6 hiding places, Lei Feng said. As he repeated the information that Toad Wells had told him on the way, he sorted out the current situation in his mind. Every group has a walkie-talkie in their hands. You have 2 on you. One is yours, and the other is the pirates. In addition, Cap has established a temporary encrypted frequency for you, so that you can communicate without being discovered by the pirates. Yes, that's the basic situation, Clam said. Clam Wells continued. The place I'm taking you to now has a lot of supplies. Cap and Bubo are there too, right? Since Block has the ability to set up communication, can he call for help from the outside world? Feng Bujua asked. He has already tried, and the conclusion is that it is not possible. Clams replied. The pirate submarine is equipped with a very advanced long-range communication interference device, which physically blocks the long-range communication between this place and the outside world. In Block's words, this is not a problem that can be solved by technology unless you give me a pulse cannon. Okay, Brother Bujua nodded. Oh, there's one more thing. Clams continued. According to the captive I captured, there is a raw poppy mine on the island, which is Greybeard's secret base. There is a holographic image at the entrance, and the door is locked with D.E. A technology, he muttered. According to my estimation, there will be equipment like a large computer in the base. As long as we can get in and get Block to sit in front of the computer, everything can still be turned around. D.E. Feng Bujua repeated. His eyes changed slightly, and he wondered, dynamic_encryption_algorithm. To be honest, I don't know. Even that pirate couldn't explain it clearly, but Block seemed to have said the 3 words you mentioned. Oh, you can ask him yourself. As he spoke, his footsteps slowed down. Look, the hiding spot is just ahead. We're here. While the 3 of them were talking, they had already arrived in front of a small waterfall that was several meters high. Clam Wells took the lead and charged in without hesitation. Water curtain cave. Feng Bujua laughed, took a deep breath, and followed closely behind. His state of mind was quite good. Even though he was trapped on a deserted island and was surrounded by danger, he still had the leisure to complain about the scenery in front of him. Sigh. It wasn't easy for me to dry my clothes last night. Layden sighed, adjusted himself slightly, and followed in. After the 3 of them entered the hiding spot one after another, they saw 3 staff members from the Man-Seeking Poison in the Wild program team, as well as Bill Block and Justin Buber. At this time, Buber and the staff members were arranging the equipment, while Block sat in a corner, using a bunch of crude tools that did not meet the standards to fiddle with an electronic device. Hey guys, how's the situation? Clam Wells asked as he came in. Mr. Block seems to need some time to prepare. One of the staff members looked up and replied, We have a lot of messy things here, but metal products are limited. He said that most of them are not useful. Another staff member said, Actually, according to me, the most useful thing now. He weighed the pistol in his hand, found on the pirate's body. Is still this, huh? The third staff member laughed dryly. You've watched too many movies, haven't you? Don't tell me you want to take a gun, rush onto the ship, kill all the pirates, and successfully rescue the hostages by yourself? Hey, this kind of thing is not impossible, the staff member replied seriously. Yes, in some parallel universe. Maybe you only need to wear a white cotton vest and go barefoot, and you could do this, the third staff member said with a laugh. The third worker smiled. But here, you'd better learn the basics first. He reached out and took the pistol from the man's hand. He pulled the safety on. For example, you should put the safety on before you play with it, just in case it goes off accidentally. Okay, guys, don't think about that kind of ridiculous thing, Clam Wells said. John is right. This is not a movie. We have to recognize the reality of the situation. We are members of a film crew, not professional killers. Just one pirate and one gun is enough to take all of our lives. Not to mention there are more than 60 people on the other side. Feng Bujua heard that and laughed in his heart. You can say that to us, but you put yourself in the range of us. Aren't you being a bit too humble? I agree. Boober listened to Clamwells and expressed his agreement. If we go head-to-head, we have no chance of winning. Even if we don't care about the lives of the hostages and take advantage of the enemy being in the open and us being in the dark, the chances are still slim. So far, getting in touch with the outside world is the most reliable way. Even so, Fong Bujue took the opportunity to pour a bucket of cold water on them. Have you considered, what if we still can't get in touch with the outside world after we enter the pirate base? Oh, Boober was quite witty. He could hear the conspiracy in Brother Jew's tone. It sounds like you already have a plan? That's right, Fong Bujue said with a smile. To deal with that child prodigy, Max, the most suitable method is to hide from the world. Fong Bujue said with a smile. Toad Wills has gathered more information than Fong Bujue. He has already told Brother Jew and the rest about it on the way there. Back to the present, 9:50 p.m. Dolphin Captain's room. Okay, let me tell you what we want to do. Fong Bujue paused for a second and calmly began to explain. First, we will use the computer in this drug production factory to reconnect with the cameras on the island and restore the video surveillance of the entire island. Then, the 18 staff members and the 5 of us here will act at the same time to clean up a total of 28 pirates on the island. Step by step, he clearly explained the strategy. Then, we will take their weapons and set up a defense line on the beach, limiting your range of activity to the coast. Finally, we will take advantage of the night to launch a surprise attack on the submarine and cruise ship and catch all of you in one fell swoop. Looking at Brother Jew's expression and listening to his explanation, Max's face turned from doubt to shock to anger, and finally to laughter. After a while, he first looked at Mr. Not Deaf behind him. Huh, Mr. Not Deaf, I seem to understand what you mean by abnormal. He paused for a moment, then turned back to Brother Jew and said, Mr. Carbon, I don't know what kind of mentality you have to say what you just said, but after listening to you, I do have 2 questions. What are they? Fong Bujue raised his eyebrows and looked like he was waiting for Max to ask. First, how stupid and arrogant does a person have to be to take the initiative to tell the other party the details of their personnel configuration? Max provoked. What's wrong with telling you? Fong Bujue asked back. Don't tell me you didn't know before I said this. He sneered. Oh, if you still haven't found out about our personnel configuration from a hostage, then you're the stupidest, right? You be asterisk starred. Max furrowed his eyebrows and scolded angrily. Only when he made this expression did he look 70 to 80% similar to his father, Graybeard. Hey, watch what you say, young man. Unexpectedly, Graybeard looked at his son seriously and said, You can't swear before the age of 14, remember? I'm sorry. Max immediately calmed down and apologized. He looked at the main screen and said, It seems like you're good at angering people, Mr. Carbon. Even to a child, you're ruthless, you flatter me. Fong Bujue responded shamelessly, as if Max was praising him. Then, my second question. Max returned to the topic at hand and continued. Even if your plan is an unpreventable conspiracy, how can you guarantee that the implementation process will be as smooth as you said? He smiled. Whether it's in terms of strength or bargaining chips, I have the absolute advantage on my side. For example, I can now open the public channel and threaten the staff on the island with the lives of the hostages. Kangaroo team, koala team, olive team, etc. He consciously revealed some of the information he knew, trying to make Max waver. After they are threatened, how will they react? Will they stubbornly resist with you to the end, or will they come out and surrender? If they don't surrender, will their actions be affected by the psychological burden? He shook his head. Mr. Carbon, if you're really smart and not a smart aleck, you should understand. Let's take 10,000 steps back. Our people are also professional pirates whose main business is robbery and drug trafficking. And your people are just a group of people who make TV shows. Even if I don't do anything, your plan, how confident are you? Clap, 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 wonderful. Very wonderful. Fong Bujue waved his hands widely and applauded Max. Sure enough, you've calculated everything clearly before talking to me. You're full of confidence and have nothing to fear. He licked his lips. Your analysis is correct. You have strength and bargaining chips. The difference in strength may be made up by the monitoring network and my on-the-spot command, but the bargaining chip, I can't do anything about it. After all, you have so many hostages in your hands, and the people on my side have some friendship with the colleagues on the ship. It's impossible that they won't be swayed by your threat. His words were praising Max, but in the process of his narration, Max's heart seemed to sink into an icy ocean. A faint sense of uneasiness became clearer and clearer in these short 10 seconds, and finally became, but. Fong Bujua used a but to change the topic. After I entered this cave, I realized, in terms of bargaining chips, we're not at a disadvantage. Finally, a fanatical smile appeared on Brother Ju's face. Even though he was in Stephen Carbon's body, the temperament revealed by this smile was still creepy. I'll put it this way. Max, you can kill all the hostages on the ship, and I won't care at all. But can you accept the reality that I'm going to destroy this mine? Before he finished speaking, Max's body froze, and Graybeard's face was filled with horror. Oomph, you finally noticed? Fong Bujua said again. Your bargaining chips are worthless to me, but my bargaining chips are the real treasure to you. He grinned. For every hostage you kill, I'll destroy a batch of your stock. When the stock is destroyed, I'll start to destroy the raw ore. I like to see who can stretch it out longer. Enough! Graybeard couldn't stand it anymore. He waved his hook in front of the screen. Carbon, what do you want? Just say it. Ha, that's right. Fong Bujua said, many things in this world. In the end, it's just a business deal, isn't it? He shook his head and said proudly, don't worry. This will be a deal that will satisfy both sides. The ending will be a win-win situation. Chapter 679. It was 11:30 in the morning. On the beach on the east side of Carnabas Island, 50 fully armed pirates were neatly divided into 2 rows, standing like a well-trained army. In the middle of the 2 rows, there was an open space about 10 meters wide. There were 3 people in the open space. 2 were standing, and 1 was kneeling. They were the pirate captain, Weaver Gray, the first mate, Max Gray, and the famous director, former pirate, James Francis Not Deaf. At that moment, there were 4 cameras, operated by 4 professional cameramen, aimed at the 3 of them from different angles. TSK. In the end, we can only record. Graybeard stood there with a displeased look and muttered. If we want to do a live broadcast, we have to turn off the signal interference device. Max continued. Now that our treasure has been exposed, we can't let the outside world know what is happening here. At least, before we complete the transfer of the inventory, we can't humph. If you ask me, we should just kill our way into the island and take back the treasure. They only have a few people and a few guns. Do you think they could defend it? Graybeard said. They can't defend it, but the defense system of the base can, Max said. Max said, with that block's ability, it will be a piece of cake for him to rewrite the system there. Once we go in, we will immediately become turtles in a jar. He sighed. Besides, they're now monitoring the entire island. There's no way we can launch a surprise attack. Are we just going to take it lying down? Graybeard said. Are we really going to do the deal according to what Carbon said? I'm afraid that's the only way, Max said in a low voice. Actually, if we take all the factors into consideration, his proposal is not impossible. To be clear, the deal that Fong Bujua proposed was that Graybeard could kill the man who was not deaf, and he could kill him however he wanted, but he had to release the other people on the Dolphin and the survivors on the island. Brother Ju promised that he would protect Graybeard's treasure until the latter moved it away. As for the specific operation of this deal, Brother Ju had already arranged it. Both parties agreed that before 12 o'clock in the morning, Graybeard would recall all the pirates from the island and complete his revenge ceremony. At 12 o'clock sharp, the 18 staff members on the island, as well as Clams, Leifong, Bubo, Block, a total of 22 people would return to the cruise ship. Fong Bujua continued to stay in the pirate base. After confirming that all the long-distance communication equipment on the cruise ship including the passengers, had been destroyed, the pirates would dissolve the metal paste at the stern of the ship and release the dolphin away from Carnabas Island. After that, both sides stayed put and waited for 2 hours. Although this period of time was not enough for the dolphin to travel to any land or island, it was enough for it to escape the pursuit of the pirates. This was enough. When the 2 hours were over, Fong Bujue would follow his promise and remove the base's defense system to welcome the arrival of the pirates. If this deal was successfully completed, except for Not Deaf and Stephen Carbon, Fong Bujue, everyone on the Dolphin could be rescued, and the pirates would have more than enough time to move their treasure. Because the Dolphin had lost its long-distance communication ability, it would take at least 7 or 8 hours for the ship to dock and report to the police. By that time, the pirates would have already moved everything that could be moved. The technology of anti-gravity catapults was very popular in this universe, and moving heavy objects was not a problem for humans here. From the results, this deal made Greybeard lose a mineral vein, a large ransom, and 4 men. He did not care much about this. Fortunately, he could still take away a large amount of inventory to avoid further losses. The most important thing was he completed his revenge. On the other hand, most of the people in the program crew and the crew of the Dolphin were able to escape from the tiger's mouth and save their lives. Overall, this was indeed a result that both sides could accept. But there was still a suspicious point that Max couldn't figure out. That was, why did Stephen Carbon want to do this? Obviously, this author played the most critical role in the whole incident. It was because he was willing to stay on the island, guard the surveillance, and use the destruction of the inventory in the base as a bargaining chip to monitor the pirates' actions to ensure the smooth progress of the entire transaction. He was like Harry, the protagonist in Armageddon, also known as The End of the World, a film directed by Michael Bay that was released in 1998. In the end, he willingly stayed on the meteorite alone and perished together with the apocalypse. Although Mr. Carbon would not be dramatically killed by a nuclear bomb, there was no doubt that his final ending was likely to be cut into pieces by Greybeard. Max just did not understand why a person who said he did not care about the life and death of the hostages would make such a move to sacrifice himself to save others. Was he acting? But what kind of show was this? Was he a hero who played the villain? Or a villain who played the hero? Whatever. Greybeard spat. There are gains and losses in life. Today, I have my revenge. I don't care about anything else. The person kneeling on the beach was not deaf. He had an indifferent expression. He laughed and said, "Your life is really sad, Dehua." He raised his head and glanced at Greybeard. "After killing me, what will be left in your life?" Seeing that your life is coming to an end, you are starting to be sentimental? Greybeard sneered. "James, you don't need to worry about my life. When I went to sea at the age of 17, I knew I would not have a good ending. I can tell you now, I will still drift on the sea for the rest of my life, spending it in wine, women, wealth, and temper, and finally die an unnatural death. But in any case, I still have a son that I am proud of." "Is that so? Is that what you think?" Greybeard glanced at Max. "With all due respect, you should blame yourself and feel guilty for him becoming what he is today, not be proud. Your pride just reflects your stupidity and selfishness." Because of his injury, his voice was lifeless, but the words that came out of his mouth were still powerful and resonant. "You have already turned a genius who might have left his name in history into a trash like you. You have already made his ending as tragic as yours." "Shut up." Greybeard waved his right arm, and there was an extra piece of human flesh on the iron hook. Even though the flesh on his cheek was scraped off, Greybeard only groaned. It seemed that he was already numb to pain. "You are about to die, and you still want to sow discord between his father and son? You despicable bastard," Greybeard said. He took half a step back and pulled out the sword at his waist. It was a very gorgeous pirate's scimitar. The blade was wavy and curved toward the end of the hilt and joined together, forming an arc-shaped guard. The golden hilt was decorated with bright rubies. After the sharp blade was unsheathed, it shone brightly under the sun. Everyone who is watching this video, listen to me. Graybeard raised the scimitar in his left hand and spoke loudly to the camera. This execution has nothing to do with politics, justice, right or wrong, good or evil. He paused. Perhaps most of you think that the man kneeling on the ground is a good person, a decent person. He is a great director, a good father, a good husband. Ha, ha, ha. He laughed and then shouted, "It doesn't matter." The gleaming scimitar was raised higher and higher, and Graybeard's figure also limped to the rear of those who weren't deaf yet. My fellow pirates, as long as you can understand what I'm saying, today, I, Captain Graybeard, behead the Caribbean mad shark in the name of revenge. Whoosh! The next second, the scimitar in his hand fell, and blood splashed 5 steps away. Graybeard had been single for 10 years, and his right hand was a hook. Naturally, I don't need to elaborate on the strength of his left arm. The scimitar cut cleanly, and the head fell to the ground. Because the scimitar was fast, blood spurted out from the neck at once. The scene was spectacular. The 2 cameramen in charge of the frontal shot, both crew members on the ship who were forcibly captured to film the execution, were so scared that they fell to the ground, their faces pale. Ha! Ha ha! Graybeard laughed. He looked up at the sky and laughed. This laughter symbolized a release, a relief. It was as if all his humiliation and hatred had disappeared with the laughter. There were countless stories in the world that described revenge, but the end of revenge was often destruction, not rebirth. When the laughter stopped, what was left behind, perhaps only the person involved would know. 11:45 in the pirate base. Have you made up your mind, Stephen? Yes, Stephen. Clam Wells was the last to walk out. The other 21 people had already gathered and were waiting in the valley outside. He looked at Fong Bujue, who stayed in the base, and asked with a serious expression. Of course. Fong Bujue said, "Don't worry. Although this plan is risky, it's not difficult to implement." He shrugged. Besides, this is the only way that everyone can leave safely. Okay. Clamwells nodded and looked at him deeply. Good luck. Oh, see you later, Fong Bujue replied. When his voice fell, Clamwells had already turned around and walked out of the base. A moment later, the team of 22 people set off for the beach. Brother Jew, who stayed in the base, walked leisurely to a table and put the props on the table into a backpack one by one. Very good. He left all the props in my inventory to me before he left, and he even gave me a backpack. How generous. He said to himself, from the surveillance, the thing called Jews, or in this universe, Jews, or is a kind of thing that is similar to a coal mine. Many people can recognize it. Brother Jew has just asked others how to recognize it. Is nearby. I can find time to dig a piece. So, there's only one challenge left. Chapter 680. Noon, 12 o'clock sharp. The sea was calm, and the sun was high up in the sky. At this time, the headless corpse that was not deaf had become the shark's food. His head was taken back to the submarine by Graybeard. He was probably going to keep it as a souvenir, or maybe an ornament. On the beach, a large pool of blood was emitting a fishy smell under the sun. The smell made the nearby pirates frown, but they still had to hold their posts and wait for the arrival of the 22 people on the island. Guys, pay attention. Not long after, a sharp-eyed pirate leader was the first to see the figures in the jungle. He immediately shouted, reminding his companions to be ready. Relax. Max, who was standing at the back, said in a calm tone, this is a deal, not a war. They just want to leave alive. He paused for a moment. Look, they don't even have weapons. Just as he spoke, Clams took the lead and walked out of the forest by the beach. The others lined up in a straight line and followed behind him. This kind of positioning was also carefully thought out. If the pirates suddenly turned hostile and raised their guns to shoot, the area of the formation would be slightly smaller, and the people at the back would have a chance to escape. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Clams. Max was the first to step forward and greet the other party. I'm your fan. Child, Clams looked at Max with a complicated expression. Thank you very much for your support, but, you don't have to say it. I can understand. Max replied with a smile. Max replied with a smile. To be worshipped by terrorists, the feelings of the person involved must be very complicated. At this time, you can just not comment. I won't mind. Yes, that's how Arsenal dealt with me. At this second, Layden happened to pass by the two of them. After hearing their conversation, Uncle Ding interrupted as if nothing had happened. Clams and Max were stunned for a few seconds after hearing this. They looked at Layden's back, which was full of hidden achievements and fame, and a feeling of incomprehension arose spontaneously. Anyway, after a few seconds, Max spoke again. Mr. Clam Wells, Mr. Carbon should have already told you about the details of the deal. As for the details of boarding the ship, I don't think I need to emphasize them. Don't worry, Clam Wells replied. We don't have any communication devices on us, except for this. As he spoke, he took out a tablet. At least it looked like one. From his bag, the backpack had been replaced by a satchel. Stephen asked me to hand this to you personally. He will contact you through this. Oh, Max answered and took the tablet. Why is this tablet so strange? It doesn't even have a logo, and the outlets around it aren't complete either. This isn't a tablet. This time, it was Block's turn to interrupt them. He glanced at Max and continued calmly. This is just I don't know what to call it. Anyway, I removed an LCD screen from the toilet in your base. After some slight modifications, it can be used as a tablet. The corner of Max's mouth twitched twice. When we were renovating, we really shouldn't have installed this behind the toilet cubicle's partition. Little brother, one day you'll understand that there's no future in watching cartoons while you're taking a dump. Boo-Bo, who was following closely behind, casually stuffed a joint into Max's jacket pocket. Keep it well, you're welcome. Looking at these weirdos floating past one by one, Max could only mutter in his heart, what kind of F***king people are they helping? Buzz, but suddenly a few electromagnetic noises were heard. Clams turned his head to look and found that it was the sound of the pirates beside the cruise ship using a portable T-type scanner, a device used for body searching. It could confirm whether the target was carrying any electronic devices without touching them. It's not that I don't trust you guys, but just in case, Max immediately explained when he saw Clam's reaction. I know. Clams immediately lowered his head and looked at Max. I also know, from the time the deal was negotiated to the time before James was killed, you guys had already done a similar check on the entire Dolphin cruise ship and cleaned up all the communication devices on the ship. The surveillance cameras on the cruise ship have indeed been controlled by you guys. Max laughed. Yes, Clams said bluntly. Your answer is quite straightforward. Max said. Stephen said that you must have already guessed this, so there's no need to hide it, Clams replied. Fisk, unpleasant guy, Max said in his heart. Clams continued. I have to thank you for not letting your subordinates remove those cameras during the inspection process. You're welcome. Max raised his eyebrows. I also hope that the deal can go smoothly. Both of them understood that the cameras on the ship had to be kept. Only in this way, Stephen Carbon, who was in the base, could be sure that there were neither hidden pirates nor hidden bombs on the ship. Originally, there was no such thing as trust in a deal based on mutual threats. In order to prevent the other party from going back on their word, this was necessary. Then, there's no time to lose. I'll board the ship too. Clam saw that the others had passed the inspection one after another and was ready to follow. Have a safe trip, Mr. Clams. Max smiled and said goodbye to the other party. Clamwells couldn't bring himself to smile. He just nodded and left silently. An hour later, on the deck of the Parrot. How long do we have to wait? Damn it. Graybeard sat in front of a round table, holding a knife in his left hand and nothing in his right hand. It was a hook in the first place. He knocked on the table and shouted, I want to have lunch on the deck. How hard is that? Calm down, Pops. Sitting next to his father, Max, who was also waiting for his meal, said, Previously, we searched the ship, searched the people, executed the prisoners, and sent the guests off. We were a little short on manpower, so I asked the people in the kitchen to come out and help. Half an hour ago, the Dolphin lifted anchor, and they returned to the kitchen to work. A bunch of useless things. Graybeard was persuaded by his son, and his attitude softened a little, but he immediately began to ramble. When I was doing odd jobs on the ship, it only took me 5 minutes to make a delicious meal. Sashimi? Max added with a smile. Graybeard's cute point was that after he was choked, he was often speechless, squeak squeak. Rustle. At this moment, there was a burst of signal interference. Max's expression tensed up, and he eagerly picked up the toilet tablet on the table. As expected, 3 seconds later, the figure of Stephen Carbon, Fong Bujua, appeared on the screen. He was still sitting in the base, looking at the camera with a leisurely expression. "Hi, kid. You must have been waiting for a long time, right?" Fong Bujua laughed. "Haha. Actually, I wanted to contact you earlier, but when I went out to mine, I happened to meet an annoying parrot. It actually dared to attack me with bird poop, so I grabbed a piece of or that I had just dug out and hardened it." He shrugged. "Anyway, it took a little time. You actually left the base just now." Max's expression was one of disbelief. "Who are you kidding?" He sneered. "Not to mention you. Even an idiot would not leave the surveillance at the critical moment before the cruise ship set sail to do other things. You're not afraid that when you're absent, we'll kill everyone on the ship and rush to the island. Of course I'm not afraid." Fong Buja interrupted him expressionlessly. "There are 2 reasons why I'm not afraid." He then explained. "First, the surveillance rights of the island and the cruise ship, as well as the active contact between you and me, are all in my hands. From your side, there's no way to know whether I'm sitting in front of the surveillance screen. So, whether I'm sitting here or not, it's all the same to you." He tilted his head. "Ha! Max, it's easier to plot against a smart person like you than against a stupid person like your father, because your actions are all within my expectations." Max's expression was ferocious. "You'd better pray that I'll let you die. Second." Fong Bujue ignored his words, stood up directly, and walked towards the camera. "Ha ha ha." He suddenly laughed strangely, and his laughter was extremely creepy. "Let me tell you in person." At this point, the image was suddenly cut off. What? Max's mouth had just uttered a syllable when something unbelievable happened. Second, Brother Bujue's voice appeared within 2 meters. "I'll emphasize again, I don't care about the lives of those people." At this moment, fear was like a pair of invisible hands, tightly clenching the hearts of Max and Graybeard. Their blood seemed to have turned cold. They saw Brother Jew, who was dressed like a pirate. Strangely, he was carrying a backpack, standing at the side of the round table with a round tray in his hand. You. Graybeard and Max looked like they had seen a ghost. Their lips trembled as they stammered, but they couldn't form a complete sentence. "Here's your lunch, Captain." Fong Bujua looked at Graybeard and Graybeard with a smile and opened the lid of the tray. "Today's main dish is Mark II grenades." Before he finished speaking, he reached out with both hands and quickly picked up the 2 grenades on the plate and brought them to his mouth. No. Max roared and wanted to rush forward to stop him. Unfortunately, it was too late. In the next second, Brother Jew bit the 2 rings at the same time and grinned. "Haha, surprise." Chapter 681. The scenario has been completed. Calculating reward. Obtained EXP 440000. Game coins 100000. Acquired item Bell's Daily Knife. Missions completed 88 completed special and hidden missions. 0. Unlocked world building. None time of terror points increase. 0. Highest terror points 0%. Average terror points 0%. Your terror rating is Embodiment of Valor. Extra reward obtained. Please select later. Obtained skill points 2 for 35-inch additional bonus skill points. EXP 24350. Game coins 100000 scenario cleared reward 90%. Additional EXP 396000 side quest reward. Wind, forest, fire, mountain, thunder. Calculation complete. Please continue. When the calculation screen refreshed, a system announcement came. Your title has been updated to Sly Schemer. Huh, a new title? Fong Bujua's expression shifted slightly, and he mumbled, Sly Schemer Fong Bujua. Humph, that does sound quite cool. As he spoke, he called out the game menu and turned his attention to his new title ability. Name: Divine Foresight Special Ability Type. Active Consumption. Complete 1 divination. No restriction on the form or the tool. Effect: Perform 1 divination with an accuracy of 99% on any objective event that has already happened, is currently happening, or is certain to happen. Cooldown time is 90 minutes. Events that have not happened might be changed due to interference after the divination, causing the accuracy to decrease. Remark: A toss of the goblet to determine luck and misfortune, and a repeat of the divination will turn the situation around. You have seen this year's event, but it means that this year's event is different. The skill is not bad. Fong Bujua looked at the skill tab and thought, but the poem at the end, it doesn't feel right to use it here. While Brother Ju was figuring out the new skill, it was better to explain what Brother Ju had done in the scenario earlier. Actually, his plan was not that complicated. He explained it in chronological order, and the viewers would be able to understand the mystery behind it. At 11:45, Clamwells and the others left the pirate base. At 11:50, Brother Ju packed up his things and left with a backpack, which contained all the items in his inventory. At 12 o'clock sharp, when the 22 people were being inspected by the pirates beside the cruise ship, Fong Bujua had already arrived at the location of the Juz mine and picked up a military shovel to dig. At 12:05 a.m., Clams and the others had boarded the ship. The pirates then left the Dolphin en masse and went to the stern of the ship. They used a special spray gun containing a special chemical material to clean up the condensation at the stern. On the other hand, Brother Ju had just finished mining and was attacked by a parrot's droppings. He immediately decided to take revenge. At 12:20, the Dolphin weighed anchor and prepared to set sail. At the same time, Fong Bujua took care of the parrot with a small piece of juz, shot by Bien, and turned into a strange metal cannonball in the air. At that point, all of Brother Ju's side quests and the main quest, complete at least 6 of the challenges given by the program, had been completed. At 12:30 a.m., the Dolphin had left Carnabas Island. Fong Bujua, on the other hand, returned to the pirate base. He put down his backpack, sat on the chair before the monitor, and started to record himself. This video was the communication that Max saw at 1 p.m. In this video, Fong Bujua only spoke 3 times. As soon as he began, he explained how he had managed to steer the conversation in a way that seemed, to Max, impossible. After that, Brother Ju purposely paused for a while, as if he was really communicating with Max in real time. Max's reaction was exactly in line with Fong Bujua's prediction. However, Max's response was still a little slow. When Brother Ju began to speak the second sentence, Max still had a few words left to say. So, it looked like Brother Ju had interrupted him with a blank expression. Brother Ju's second statement was an explanation for the first statement and also a provocation. Be it the former or the latter, it was enough for Brother Ju to achieve his real goal, and that was to further attract Gray Beard and Max's attention. As for the last sentence, which was mixed with a strange laugh, it was purely to pave the way for his debut. At 12:37 a.m., Fong Bujua set the time for the communication and set the video to be played in real time. Then, he changed into a set of pirate clothes, which were available in the base, put on his backpack, and set off for the coast. With the help of the oxygen pipe, Fong Bujua followed the coastline and approached the parrot by walking underwater. At this time, most of the pirates were very relaxed, and a few who were on guard were looking in the direction of the sea. Everyone thought that Stephen Carbon was still watching the surveillance in the base in the middle of the island, and it was impossible for him to appear nearby. At the very least, he was just one person. What would he do even if he came? At 12:52 a.m., Fong Bujua quietly boarded the ship. His whole body was wet, but he calmly carried a backpack and walked into the submarine. Brother Ju was a person who was very good at sneaking in. He knew very well that the key to doing this was to be calm. The more you trembled, the easier it was to attract attention and give yourself away. On the contrary, as long as you acted as if nothing had happened, even if you were a little strange, others would not ask you anything. At most, they would look at you a little more. At 12:55 a.m., Fong Bujue ambushed a pirate and asked for the whereabouts of Graybeard, and Mac's brother Jew's plan was flexible. Before he came, he had thought about it. If Graybeard and Max were in different places, he would sneak into the submarine and assassinate the former directly. However, if the two of them were in the same place, with Max's vigilance, it would be difficult for him to get close to them. At that time, the video would come in handy. At 1:05 a.m., the tablet in Max's hand was connected. He, who was unaware of Brother Jew's conspiracy, naturally thought that this was a communication. Clams and blocks words also misled Max. Of course, this was all arranged by Brother Jew in advance. Therefore, he and Graybeard, who was beside him, relaxed their vigilance at this moment. How could they have known that the person who was communicating with them on the island was actually on the submarine and was walking over with 2 grenades? DD. 2 light beeps interrupted Fong Bujue's train of thought. He raised his eyes and saw a dialogue box inviting him to enter the conference room. SH*T. I'm late. It was then that Fong Bujue realized that it was already 2:30 a.m. in real life. He was 1.5 hours late from the time that he had promised to meet with his friends. 1.5 hours in real life was 15 hours in the game. If they waited for him in the conference room, they would have finished watching the extended version of Lord of the Rings. Brother Jew did not even accept the reward. He hurriedly turned around and pressed the button to enter the conference room. After the door opened, he quickly apologized. Sorry, the script is too long. In the conference room, Xiao Tan and Xiao Ling were really watching a movie. It's okay, Xiao Ling added. After we logged in, we saw that you were still in the scenario, so we knew that you wouldn't be able to arrive on time. Therefore, we went to queue up with Sister Qin. In the end, we played for more than 10 hours, and we only finished 1 hour ago. Oh, Fong Bujue scanned the conference room. Where is she? He paused. How come Ruoyu is not here? Due to the rush, Brother Jew did not check his friend's status in the social tab, so he had no idea where they were. If it's Sister Qin, she went offline to sleep, Xiao Tan replied. She said that this is the first time she's done such a long script, so she's tired. As for my cousin, she went to visit the thriller box. She said that she didn't want to disturb us. Xiao Ling continued Xiao Tan's sentence. She said that you can contact her when you're ready. Fong Bujue thought about it. Okay, then why don't you stay and watch the movie? I've just finished the script, so I need to prepare. After I'm done, I'll contact Ruoyu and we'll meet up here. Long story short, 1 minute later in the storage room. As the white light gathered, Fong Bujue's additional reward appeared. Name, Bloodstained Spoon. Item type, weapon quality, trash offense points, weak element, none special effect, none remark. Yes, this is indeed a weapon, and it can be used to kill. Haven't you read? A murder carried out using extremely inefficient weapons? Fong Bujue looked at the item and laughed drily. To be able to draw something like this at level 46, I guess that's some kind of power. He did not feel too sad about it. After all, it was just a trip to the market to sell some trash. Then, Brother Jew walked to the other glass tube to claim his side mission reward. This side mission reward was quite strange. Theoretically speaking, there were 6 missions, and if the reward was 6 items, then the 6 items should be placed inside the 6 glass tubes. But in this room, there were only 2 glass tubes. In other words, wind, forest, fire, mountain, and thunder were all inside this one tube. Now that I think about it, what are these 6? Looking at the gathering white light, Fong Bujue mumbled to himself. Based on the name, could it be some kind of elemental stone? His guess was not wrong. Technically speaking, these were indeed elemental stones. But compared to a normal elemental stone, there was a world of difference. If one had to describe the difference, it was like comparing a 1999 law fight and a raisin that had expired 9 months ago. Chapter 683. Not long after that, 6 orbs the size of tennis balls appeared inside the glass tube. Hey, could these be Dragon Balls? Fong Bujue was obviously complaining because he understood that if they were Dragon Balls, the names of the items would not be wind, forest, fire, mountain, thunder, but 1 planet, 2 planet, 3 planet. Buzz. Following several strange noises, the light inside the glass tube faded away, and the 6 orbs finally revealed their true appearance. Fong Bujue opened the game menu and studied them one by one. The first one was completely transparent. It looked like a solid glass ball, but it was lighter than paper. Name: Swift as the wind type. Others quality: perfect special effect. Unknown remark: a pearl that contains the power of the wind. The second one was blue in color. No matter how one looked at it, it looked like there was liquid flowing inside it. Name: Swift as the forest type. Others quality: perfect special effect. Unknown remark: a pearl that contains the power of rhythm. The third one was red like jade, and there was a sense of warmth coming from it. Name: fiery invasion type. Others quality: perfect special effect. Unknown remark: a pearl that contains the power of fire. The fourth one was a golden metal ball, but the surface of the orb was dim, and it looked dark and gloomy. Name: immovable mountain type. Others quality: perfect special effect. Unknown remark: a pearl that contains the power of a movable god. The fifth one was as black as ink and as cold as ice. When it swayed, there was a shadow spreading out from it. Name: unknowable shadow type. Others quality: legendary special effect. Unknown remark: only the most knowledgeable ancient god will be able to discern its true form. The sixth one was white with hints of blue, like a lamp. Name: moving like thunder type. Others quality: perfect special effect. Unknown remark: a pearl that contains the power of thunder. These 6 pearls were the 6 side quest rewards that Fong Bujue had obtained from the previous scenario: wind, forest, fire, mountain, and thunder. I have a feeling that they will be useful, but I have no idea how to use them. After reading the description, Brother Ju placed the pearls into his inventory. Furthermore, these 6 items cannot be stacked. In other words, they will take up 6 inventory slots. As a result, Brother Ju only had 2 empty slots left in his bag. Fortunately, Bell's daily knife could be strapped to his waist. Otherwise, his newly upgraded backpack would be strapped to the ground again. Anyway, I'll just keep it with me for now. Fong Bujue thought to himself. After all, I have buy-in, and I really don't know what use it has. So I'll just use these perfect quality pearls like bullets. He scratched his chin and thought to himself. The trash quality mud has the power of shotgun. The normal quality by say, or has the power of cannonball. And so on. These pearls, won't they be as powerful as intercontinental missiles? As he thought about that, he walked out of the storage room and entered the market. Other than selling trash, Fong Bujue also went to check the market at the auction house. After a season of operation, Thriller Paradise's auction house had matured. Trash items with sky-high prices had almost disappeared. Of course, there were still a small number of people who were speculating. They still had the mentality of perhaps I'll run into an idiot, and they would place expensive equipment in the auction house. Obviously, they were the real idiots who were willing to pay the system a fee. Brother Ju only stayed for 10 minutes. Since he did not find anything that caught his eye, he left. After he returned to the login lobby, he contacted Ruoyu. They chatted for a while before heading to Xiao Tan's meeting room. If there was a book, the story would be long. If there was no book, the story would be short. 10 minutes later, the 4 returned to the login lobby and prepared to enter the scenario. To avoid the suspicion of making up the number of words, there was no need to list Brother Ju's attributes in detail. Instead, there were only the changes that had been made. First, his title had changed to Sly Schemes, and his title ability had changed to Divine Foresight. Second, his EXP had increased to 138,339,004,600,000. Skill points had increased to 2,683, and game coins had increased to 153,0,100. Other than that, his inventory had gained wind, forest, fire, mountain, and thunder pearls, and he had gained Bel's daily knife. Then, next, Feng Bujue, level 46 Wang Tanji, level 43, like rain, level 44, Laughing Soul, level 43. Please select the game mode that your team would like to join. You have selected Team Survival Mode, Normal. Please confirm. Your team is joining Team Survival Mode, Normal. The team size has been randomized, 6 members. Your team has joined the queue. Currently searching for other players or teams that are ready. Matching complete. Coordinating neural connections. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. At that moment, the player's vision darkened, and they lost the ability to move. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. An old and wise voice slowly appeared in their ears. Download complete. You are currently in Team Survival Mode, Normal. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there's a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Reward for clearing the scenario. Puzzle card X2. The scenario introduction will be played soon. The game will start immediately after that. After the system announcement ended, there was about 10 seconds of silence. Then, in the pitch-black image, a thin, blurry figure faintly appeared. A child's voice then began to recite emotionlessly, "Mommy killed me. Daddy ate me. Brothers and sisters climbed down from the table, picked up my bones buried in a cold stone tomb." From the size and voice, the child was very young. The gender-neutral voice made it hard to tell the child's gender, and it was unclear whether this child who was killed, eaten, and buried by his family was a boy or a girl. "My mother has killed me." When Feng Bujue heard this, he was already thinking about the next step. The theme of this scenario is a nursery rhyme. Even though there are only 4 sentences, there's quite a lot of information. If I'm not mistaken, the enemies will be ghosts or cannibals. Feng Bujue thought to himself. Just as he was thinking, the introductory cinematic ended just like that. The scenario officially started. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.